The young man with sharply squinted eyes, radiating danger, was none other than our protagonist, Asin Adil. Just 3 seconds ago, he had been a South Korean named Nam Wooyeon, a novelist by trade, but within the span of those 3 seconds, everything changed. The villain from his story had crawled out of the pages and into the real world. Coming for him. The reason? Wooyeon had just written the character's death, sending Asin to the afterlife at the hands of the story's hero. Ending things with the kind of predictable finale readers had come to expect. After typing the last sentence, Wooyeon rubbed his forehead and let out a heavy sigh. By scripting the downfall of the most powerful villain at the hands of the protagonist, he'd given readers the closure they wanted. But to him, it was garbage. This wasn't the ending he truly wanted to write. Still, the reality of needing to pay the bills had forced his hand. The moment he typed the final word, a strange sound echoed through the room. Wooyeon flinched. No one was supposed to be around this late. He cautiously went to the door, but all he found was an eerie silence. Although something didn't sit right, he convinced himself it was probably just a drunk passing by. As he turned to head back to bed, a strange piece of paper fell at his feet. On it, in neat handwriting, was a message. This is a gift. Call upon it when you need it. Before he could even joke to himself about wishing for a new TV or fridge, the paper began to emit a dark mist. From that black haze, Asin materialized right before his eyes. Staring in disbelief, Wooyeon gasped, "What the hell? Why is he here?" Asin didn't respond right away. Instead, he gave a bitter smile and said, "So this is how I die? Huh? After all those years, 10 years of sharpening my sword, of chasing revenge against those who destroyed my clan, my loved ones, my comrades, the woman I loved. I gave everything." He went on, "But for what? Even after casting it all aside, I still failed. Well, Wooyeon, you know better than anyone. No point in me going on about it." Wooyeon opened his mouth to say something, but Asin cut him off coldly. "That's why, please." The black mist surged forward, swallowing Wooyeon's entire body. Asin, wearing that same weary smile, added, "Please, help me. Only you can change this fate. I'll be watching." Wooyeon felt like he was being pulled into a tangled mess. Then, suddenly, he woke up, gasping, sitting upright. Did I pass out or something?" he muttered, rubbing his head. But the room looked strange, nothing like his own. The layout was completely unfamiliar. Glancing down at his wrist, he furrowed his brows. "What's with these clothes?" He climbed out of bed and stepped toward a nearby mirror, murmuring, "What the hell is going on?" When his reflection came into view, he froze. A head of crimson hair, a mischievous, almost devilish grin, and those lifeless, fox-like eyes. He recognized them instantly. Somehow, he had been placed into the body of Asin, the most powerful villain in his own novel. And more importantly, in just a few days, the assassination would take place. The Asin family, descendants of demons with half-demon blood, had once risen to power as one of the kingdom's greatest houses thanks to their formidable lineage. But that strength was what led to their downfall. The 6 great houses crushed them. All that remained was Asin alone. That was his backstory, the reason he became a villain. He had tried to seek revenge, only to fail. And so, he brought Wooyeon, the man who created him, into this world. In just a few days, Wooyeon would be executed by the knights of those 6 families. Feeling helpless, Wooyeon summoned the status window. Asin had always been one of the most powerful characters in the novel, but not even close to the overpowered abilities Wooyeon had given the protagonists. The window flickered to life, displaying the following: race, half-demon; setting, chaos; talent slot 1, transposition; attributes, obsession; focused killing intent; darkness; mana control; mana 341. No matter how charismatic the villain was, Wooyeon had never once planned for him to beat the protagonist. Now, that very setup had backfired. He couldn't even control Asin's mana. The fearsome attributes he'd written for Asin were turning into a curse. Frustrated, Wooyeon ran a hand through his hair, then spotted the same mysterious piece of paper lying on the bed. What the hell? Wait, this is the paper that appeared before I got pulled into the novel. I completely forgot about it. It might not help, but he had no other options. He recalled the message, when in need. Read this. He looked again, only to find it blank. Where'd the words go? Damn it. Is this really how it ends for me? Suddenly, new writing began to appear. A message from the author, himself. If you don't know how to use the gift, just answer yes or no. Woo Hyun's hands trembled as he read on. The note continued, "You idiot. Just write yes or no on the paper." Annoyed, Woo Hyun muttered, "Seriously? Now you're giving me the cold shoulder too? Fine, I'll play along." He scrawled the word yes. Immediately, new instructions appeared. It was a tool for information trading. The paper would answer anything written on it. Some questions, however, would require payment. Startled, he muttered, "Information trading? It knows everything?" The paper responded, "The more important the question, the higher the price." Woo Hyun didn't hesitate. "Tell me how to return to the real world." The paper instantly rejected him. Not possible. He cursed under his breath. "Damn it, I knew I couldn't count on you." Switching gears, he scribbled, "Then tell me how to control Essen's mana and use his attributes." That was the more urgent problem. As soon as he finished writing, a surge of mana coursed through his body. The paper replied, "No payment required. Mana control and attribute usage have already been embedded into your body. Do you accept?" Without hesitation, he said, "Yes." And just like that, he grinned. "I can feel the mana." The first attribute. The ability to nullify all 5 senses using the power of darkness. When he activated it, a black hole formed in the palm of his hand. He smiled with satisfaction. It worked. Normally, it's way bigger, but this size feels just right. The next ability was the power to restrain enemies using Bloodlust Aura. When Woo Hyun activated it, he succeeded again. Knights and trained soldiers might be able to resist it, but this still works on regular people. He noted with satisfaction. Now, all that remained was mastering Essen's unique talent, Transposition 1. It was an elite assassination skill that allowed him to swap positions with any chosen object. As he locked onto a target, a magic circle appeared beneath his feet. "Right now, I can only swap within a 20 square meter range," he muttered, unimpressed. That's pathetic compared to Essen's power in the novel, but with training. Determined, he glanced forward and picked a nearby suit of armor as his test subject. He activated Transposition 1, expecting to appear inside the armor. Instead, he was launched backward with a loud crash, landing flat on his back with his butt in the air. Damn it, of course it wasn't going to work on the first try. He growled in frustration. Outside, the thunder of hooves and the clinking of armor filled the air. The knights were coming. But Woo Hyun clenched his fists. Defiant, "I'll try again. 10 times. No, 100 times if I have to. I'm going to survive this." From outside, the soldiers roared. "This time, we'll kill him for sure." At that moment, inside the Arson family estate, a group of men stormed in. Seeing the crowd, 2 servants looked on anxiously. A tall man with a murderous glare scanned the room and asked coldly, "Where is he?" That man was Count Leon, the commander of the Peltz Knights. "He's in that room, sir," one of the servants stammered. "He's been in there for days. We've heard some noise, but he hasn't responded." Leon narrowed his eyes. "What's his condition?" "He hasn't moved at all." Leon grunted. "HMPH." Without hesitation, he kicked open the door and barged in. Inside, Arson was calmly seated in a chair, utterly unfazed. "You've arrived," he said flatly. "Count Leon, I doubt you came all this way just to let a kid like me live. Right?" Leon sneered. "Ridiculous. Kill him." One of the soldiers stepped forward immediately. "Yes, sir." But Arson wasn't about to let himself get steamrolled. He quickly activated Transposition 1 with a precise target. Instantly, the soldier's sword began to glow. He was confused and caught off guard. Arson used Transposition 1 again, swapped places, and appeared right in front of the soldier. In a flash, he plunged his blade into the man's neck. Blood sprayed everywhere. Leon was stunned at how quickly Arson had taken down one of his own. "Don't just stand there. Get him," Leon barked. The rest of the soldiers charged in. Arson dashed out of the room, threw his dagger at the ground, and activated Transposition 1 to teleport. He landed safely and immediately made up his mind. "I need to get to the Asan forest." Seeing Arson escape, Leon shouted, "He's on the run. After him." Inside the Asan forest, Arson ran with everything he had. Gasping for air, Even if I manage to shake the knights and escape this territory, there's no way I can survive like this. That's why I'm heading for the gate hidden in this forest, the one that leads to the demon realm. The demon realm was in shambles, devastated by war with humanity. If I can prove myself useful, they might accept me. As he caught his breath, a sound in the distance caught his attention. They've already caught up? Leon's knights had entered the forest. Spread out. Find him, Leon ordered. Arsene crouched behind a tree, eyes scanning carefully. The novel never described the gate's exact location, but I know it's nearby. While moving, he accidentally stepped on a twig. The snap echoed, and Leon immediately unleashed a powerful blast, ripping through the area, with killing intent radiating from him. Leon growled, "So this is where you've been hiding, you slippery rat." But Arsene had already used Transposition 1 to flee once again. I've got maybe 1 or 2 more swaps left. I have to find that gate, fast. Frustrated but determined, he muttered, "Damn it, there might still be a way." He scribbled on the enchanted paper, "Tell me the exact location of the gate to the demon realm in Assen Forest." The paper responded, "That information isn't free. The cost is 100 gold coins or an artifact of relic level or higher." He stared at the message in disbelief. What the hell? Where the hell am I supposed to get that? Just as the words left his mouth, a violent shockwave slammed into him, throwing him to the ground. Pain shot through his body as Leon stepped forward, sword in hand. "You ran because you wanted to live, didn't you, Arsene?" Leon sneered. "You're going to die here, whether you want to or not." Blood dripping from his mouth. Arsene still sneered defiantly. "Don't make me laugh. I'm not dying today. There's still one last shot. Live or die, I'll take the chance," he thought, gritting his teeth. Seeing Arsene still standing strong, Leon muttered in disbelief, "You're still resisting? You are the head of a noble house. After all." Arsene gripped his sword tighter. Annoyed, "And you lot love acting all righteous while a gang of grown men gang up on a kid? Maybe you should switch careers and become babysitters instead. Oh wait, I guess doing things yourself isn't your strong suit. Huh?" His biting sarcasm made Leon's blood boil. "I was going to end your life painlessly, but now I'll pierce your heart with the very sword Count Leon bestowed upon me." Drawing his blade, he charged with a roar, "Die!" But Arsene smirked. "This is it, now." Just as Leon lunged, Arsene flipped open the enchanted paper. It lit up with a message. "Thank you for your payment. The price has been deemed sufficient. You will now be guided to the demon realm gate within the forest." Arsene's lips curled into a victorious grin, confusing Leon. "What?" A glowing doorway appeared beside Arsene. He immediately activated Transposition 1 and flung himself toward it. Leon's eyes widened. "Stop." But Arsene didn't hesitate. Sprinting forward, he thought, "That twisted bastard. I can't believe he chased me all the way here." Then, spotting the portal, there it is. Leon, in desperation, ripped a tree out by the roots and hurled it. "I won't let you escape." The massive trunk flew straight toward Arsene. But just as it was about to hit, Arsene's body began to vanish into the portal. Smiling back at Leon, he shouted, "See you next time, Lord Leon." And with that final jab, he disappeared through the gate, leaving Leon trembling with rage. Damn it, he's made it to the demon realm. After arriving in the demon realm, Arsene chewed on some dried meat. Lost in thought, how long has it been? After passing through the gate and blacking out, I woke up in some kind of dungeon. This place, it's man-made. Someone created it, a secret chamber for dark magic. He looked around, confused. Why would there be dried meat and a stone bed in a place like this? Was it left by whoever's guarding the treasure? There was more, an ominous red barrier that blocked frontal attacks and a massive stone guardian looming nearby. I don't know which high-ranking family built this place, but everything about it feels off. Just looking at the guardian was enough to give him chills. If I charge in now, I'll probably get crushed. Suddenly, the enchanted paper lit up, grabbing his attention. It read, "This will be your only warning. Do not offer items in trade that do not rightfully belong to you. Any further violations will result in termination of all exchanges." Arsene broke into a cold sweat. This thing's insane, but it's letting it slide this time? Then something caught his eye. Huh? That stone wall looks odd. Wait, I can sense something. Magic energy? Suddenly, a disembodied voice echoed, "You do not have permission." Arson frowned. Must be the failsafe tied to the barrier. Damn it. He began weighing his options. I need another way out of here. That chunk that fell from the Guardian, if it really is just a rock. This might work. Acting quickly, he used targeted transposition 1. Swapping places with the stone fragment. A flash of light, and he appeared outside the barrier. Yes, it worked, he exclaimed with a grin. But before he could relax, a monstrous roar echoed through the chamber. In a distant kingdom, where the sun and moon aligned to form a solar eclipse, a bucket of water was suddenly splashed with force. You idiot, why would you spill it here? A child was being relentlessly scolded. The one yelling from above was none other than Crete, the head of the bear's family in the demon realm. Stepping inside, Crete muttered, so noisy today. Probably because my daughter's about to charge into a mid-tier secret zone. What a hassle. If she succeeds, she'll gain access to Saitan. But even if I ordered her to fail, she'd just defy me anyway. He let out a tired sigh. She's convinced that only by entering Saitan can she take revenge on the humans who killed her mother. But can someone that emotionally fragile even survive in a place swarming with nothing but elite demon sentries? Suddenly, a servant rushed in, calling out, Lord Crete, something's happened. Annoyed, Crete turned to him. What's with all the yelling? The servant bowed apologetically. Flustered. I'm sorry. We've received word that an unidentified individual is currently inside the secret zone. In the secret zone? Crete raised an eyebrow. Intrigued. Yes, the servant continued. There's no trace of them using the standard method to enter. So everyone's quite confused. Have you identified them yet? Crete asked. The servant shook his head. No, sir, but they activated a function that only you are able to use from the inside. We still don't know who they are. Crete tapped his fingers against the desk. Deep in thought. Perhaps he was forcefully summoned through one of the portals left behind from the war between humans and demons. He waved a hand dismissively. He'll probably die in there anyway. So don't worry about it. Just focus on preparing for my daughter's trial. The servant nodded quickly. Understood. As Crete turned to gaze outside, his thoughts lingered. If everything goes well, I might gain a useful pawn out of this. Of course, that's assuming he survives the secret zone. Back inside the dungeon, Arson was suddenly flung back into the room with a startled scream, crashing hard onto the floor. What the hell? Was that a wolf? I nearly died just now. The wolf relentlessly slammed itself against the barrier door, making Arson uneasy. So even with the barrier gone, getting out isn't going to be easy. Then something clicked. Wait, isn't it made of stone too? He smirked. Alright, let's try this. With a flicker of light, he cast targeted transposition 1 again. Success. The positions reversed, Arson now outside, and the confused wolf trapped inside the chamber, howling and thrashing wildly. Arson dashed away, thinking, that thing's as good as dead in there. Now I just need to find a way out. As he ran, he suddenly skidded to a halt. A praying mantis-like monster stood in his path. Damn it, guess it won't be that easy. So each stage has its own guardian. He narrowed his eyes. This one's definitely more dangerous than the wolf. But instead of panicking, he kept running, a cocky grin on his face. Just as I thought, they're all mindless constructs. As long as I've got transposition 1, I can manipulate the traps themselves. Soon, he reached the final door. A voice echoed from beyond it. Welcome to your final destination. Arson blinked. What? You're greeting an intruder? What the hell is this place? He muttered. This must be the boss room. Is anyone in there? He called out. Inside stood a dark, menacing figure, a death knight. Arson swallowed hard. Judging by his aura, he's probably on par with Phi. The death knight began to speak. I acknowledge your strength for making it this far. But before he could finish, Arson swiftly used targeted transposition 1, swapping the knight outside the room. With the coast clear, Arson eagerly stepped forward. Treasure chest? It's even bigger than I expected, and there's a black dragon carved on it. Then his expression froze. Wait, that black dragon symbol. I've seen it before. A black dragon? Among the highest-ranking noble families. Each one embodies a sin: sloth, lust, gluttony, wrath, envy, greed, malice, and pride. Bears, the seventh great sin, pride. His eyes widened as dread set in. Damn it, if he catches me now, I'm dead. No time to hesitate, he tore the lid open. Screw it, I'm taking everything and getting the hell out. There's gotta be something in here that'll help me escape. But as soon as the chest opened, a torrent of dark energy surged out, latching onto his face. It forced its way into his stomach like a parasite. Arson screamed in agony, clutching his gut as he violently vomited. His vision blurred. His head felt like it was exploding, blood splattered everywhere as he howled in pain. Lying on the floor was something grotesque. Arson trembled, gasping for breath. How long was I out? Wait, is my left eye bulging? He checked his reflection in the blade of his sword, and saw a black sclera. No way, that liquid from earlier. Was it? Just then, his status screen appeared. Race: half-demon. Attribute: chaotic. Innate skill: targeted transposition 1. Traits: immersive tendencies, fascination, focus, bloodlust, darkness, mana manipulation, prideful eye, mana 341. Dynamic vision: greatly enhanced. Activated upon defeating an enemy. Seeing his new powers, Arson smirked in satisfaction. With this, I'll never lose to those weaklings again. Not bad. Coming to the demon realm was definitely the right move. With the trial behind him, he made up his mind. Everything I needed is in my hands now. Time to get out of here. His attention had been fixed on the chest. But then he noticed something else, a door in the back. What do I do now? I made a ton of noise just now. No doubt there are soldiers waiting outside. If I step out, I'm dead. He hesitated. Do I need to drop to my knees faster than the speed of light to survive this? Then a darker thought crossed his mind. If they find out I'm from another noble house, even begging won't save me. I've gotta hide this crest. Suddenly, a furious roar erupted behind him. The Death Knight was slamming against the door, shouting, "Open up, now!" Startled, Arson turned to see the knight violently attacking the sealed entrance. Then came another voice. "Her Highness is on her way. Open the door." Arson's heart sank. What? Her Highness? Wait a second. Don't tell me the dried meat in the stone bed, this whole place, it was designed by a noble house for training? Panic rising, he scribbled on the glowing paper. I need to know, who owns this place? I just stole a reward meant for someone else. If they find me, they'll tear me apart on the spot. He asked, "Tell me who is the closest person to me right now." The paper glowed and responded. That information requires payment. Either an item worth 100 gold coins or an artifact of relic grade or higher. Arson clenched his jaw. What can I offer? Then he decided. My mana. I'll pay with 100 points of my maximum mana. He gritted his teeth. It'll hurt, but if I survive this, I can recover. The paper accepted. Payment accepted. 100 mana has been deducted. The person closest to you is Renee, youngest daughter of Crete Bears, patriarch of House Bears. Just then, Renee entered. Arson froze in horror. Shit, I'm done for. He now understood. This was a domain crafted by House Bears for the sole purpose of training their youngest daughter. That prideful eye, it was supposed to be her reward for completing the trial. Renee, a noble with real authority in House Bears, sliced the Death Knight's head clean off as if it were nothing. Then her sharp gaze turned toward Arson, sweat dripping down his face. All right, I've got this, he muttered to himself. Renee pointed her sword at him. Annoyed, who are you? Arson instantly dropped to one knee and said with exaggerated reverence, Congratulations, Lady Renee, on completing the domain. You've finally proven yourself worthy. Her eyes narrowed. Explain. Sweating bullets, Arson said. The Patriarch assigned me to be your escort. We made eye contact, he thought, but she doesn't seem to recognize the prideful eye. Renee raised an eyebrow. You? Arson grinned. Yes, I may not look like much, but I'm actually pretty skilled. Inside, he clenched his fists. I'll use her to get out of this place alive. Renee suddenly burst into laughter. Peeved. Arson tensed up. Crap, she doesn't believe me? Immediately, he activated his ability, startling her. Seizing the moment, he grabbed her hand with a confident grin. So, I'm sure I'll be a valuable asset in protecting Lady Renee. She yanked her hand back in irritation, leaving Arson confused. What? Wait, did I just piss her off? Renee turned away, deep in thought. HMPH. Arson let out a mental sigh of relief. Thank God she's letting that slide. He quickly said, Let's go. You should see the patriarch right away, he's been waiting for you. Renee nodded. Alright, perfect, Arsene thought. I need to get out first. I'll say I have other tasks from the patriarch. I've gotta escape while I still can. He threw open the door with a smile. I promise I won't keep you waiting. But then Renee suddenly stopped in her tracks. Catching him off guard, she looked ahead and called out, Father. Crete stood there, a chilling aura radiating from his smile. Arsene's heart nearly stopped. Damn it, why the hell is Crete here? If he sees the prideful eye, he'll kill me on the spot. But nothing happened. Wait, why isn't he reacting? Crete looked at Renee. Did you successfully complete the domain? She answered, Yes, I did, Father. Satisfied, Crete turned. I see. Come with me. Arsene blinked. Come with him? What's he planning now? With no better choice, he followed. I can't keep fooling everyone forever, and I've got nothing left to offer that damn paper. That means I can't use its power again. They arrived at the estate. So this is the Bears family manor. Crete suddenly stopped and turned to his men. Return to your quarters. They bowed. Yes, sir. Then he turned to Arsene. As for you, stay here. I'll summon you later. Arsene couldn't help but feel a twinge of hope. He's leaving me alone? Maybe this is my chance. But he immediately stopped himself. No, of course not. That would be too easy. Inside Crete's office, Renee stood before him. Crete asked, You've completed the final task I gave you. But do you really insist on going into the Saitan training zone? Renee nodded. Yes, Father. He was quiet for a moment, then shifted gears. Let's put that aside for now. That boy, what do you think of him? She recalled the encounter and replied, He's strong. Crete raised an eyebrow. Intrigued. I see, interesting. He stood up and stared out the window. Since you've proven yourself worthy, I'll grant you permission to enter Saitan. As you wished. Renee smiled brightly. Thank you, Father. Crete was pleased. I thought that kid would die the moment he stumbled into the domain. But not only did he survive, he managed to take the prideful eye, and now Renee herself is vouching for him. He's definitely someone I can make use of. Meanwhile, outside, Arsene was pacing. How long am I supposed to wait out here? In the dim, flickering light of the castle halls, two men emerged from the shadows. One of them, a subordinate, bowed respectfully and gestured toward Arsene. This way. He pushed open a heavy door, announcing, I've brought him, Patriarch. The moment Arsene stepped into the room, Crete's face appeared, like a demon rising from the depths of hell. Fear shot through Arsene's entire body. The Patriarch, what is he thinking? He lowered his head immediately. Every movement careful, knowing even a small misstep could cost him his life. Why did you let me live? He asked, voice trembling. Crete smiled, twisted and unnatural. Then his voice exploded through the air like thunder. You bastard. A wave of power erupted from him, shaking the dark castle to its core. You really know how to deceive my daughter, don't you? The sudden attack caught Arsene completely off guard. Agony surged through him as he collapsed to the ground, gritting his teeth, barely able to suppress his groans. Under the sheer force of Crete's mana, Arsene couldn't hold out. His body hit the floor hard. Through clenched teeth, he cried out, You don't intend to kill me. Hearing this, Crete slowly withdrew his power, lips curling into a mocking smirk. HMPH. Arsene gasped, sucking in desperate breaths. Ha, ha, his body continued to tremble. This demonic aura, it's terrifying. Crete stood tall, the very image of an untouchable tyrant. With an amused gleam in his eye, he finally spoke. You're quick on your feet. I'll give you that. He looked Arsene over and asked, What's your name? Still shaking, Arsene responded immediately. Arsene. The moment he said it, Crete's expression darkened further. Arsene. Huh? Before Arsene could react, another wave of power slammed into him. He writhed in pain, completely lost as to why the man was so enraged. What do you want from me? He cried weakly. Crete's voice cut like a blade. Open your mouth. With a sick grin, he added, Just keep saying what you told my daughter. Something monstrous slithered into Arsene's throat, a grotesque creature crawling deep inside. His mind screamed as it began to invade his very consciousness. Crete increased the pressure again, driving Arsene into unspeakable pain. A voice echoed within him, dark and ominous. Should you stray even slightly, this poison will rip your heart to pieces. Arsene let out a guttural scream. powerless against the force now dwelling inside him. Crete turned away as if nothing had happened. "I'll prepare a room for you. Wait until I call for you." He walked off, utterly unconcerned by the broken man writhing behind him. His goal had been achieved, his threat was delivered. "Leave," he ordered coldly. Arsene lay on the ground, panting heavily, still in disbelief. What the hell just happened? Later, deep within the castle's ominous halls, he was escorted to a large room. The subordinate spoke calmly. "This will be your quarters from now on." Standing alone in the vast space, Arsene reflected, "I've become a dependent of this family, because of Crete's will." The servant bowed politely. "Please, rest well." Arsene remained confused, still processing the fact he was alive. To be allowed to live in a place this luxurious. "I should be grateful, but this all feels like manipulation." He sat down on the bed, slowly coming to terms with what had happened. "Still, Crete acknowledged me, even if only a little. Maybe, just maybe this could work in my favor." But beneath all that, something grotesque still squirmed deep within him. He clutched his chest, feeling the monstrous presence inside. It was alive, with steely resolve. He thought, "I have to get this thing out of me." His eyes narrowed. "It has to work." After forcing the creature out of his body using mana, Arsene cried out in relief. "It worked, just as I thought. It's just a mindless thing." Staring at the grotesque creature, still sound asleep and completely unaware, he thought, "If I had failed, this would have been disgusting. And if I kill it now, Crete will know immediately." He hesitated. "So what the hell am I supposed to do with it?" Suddenly, the creature stirred. Its eyes snapped open. Arsene tensed up, then quickly realized. It woke up the moment my mana stopped feeding it. Without wasting a second, he pricked his finger and dropped a bit of blood onto the thing. "Here, eat this." As the creature greedily absorbed the mana in his blood, a hazy, intoxicated look crossed its face. Arsene let out a tired sigh. "So the only way to keep it calm is to feed it like this, great." He nudged it gently. "Hurry up and go back to sleep already." Completely drained, Arsene collapsed onto the soft bed with a long sigh. "Finally, I can relax a little." He clutched his chest, still feeling the strain. "I wonder how much of that trap was neutralized. I'm about to pass out." A status screen flickered into view. Race: half-demon. Attribute: chaos. Talent: substitution I, level 2. Traits: immersion enthusiast. Interest drive. Focus: killing intent. Darkness: mana control. Eye of pride. Mana: 341. Right pointing arrow 241. Examining the numbers, Arsene scrutinized the data carefully. Better double-check everything. After scanning the screen, he gave a small nod. Substitution hit level 2. Nice. But my mana pool, it's a joke compared to main characters. I'm a grain of sand in a desert. He frowned. How the hell do I increase my mana? What do I need to do? After racking his brain, a thought sparked. Ah, that's right. There's still another way. Elsewhere, Renee stood expressionless, her face empty and cold. She muttered, "I don't like this." "Huh?" Arsene asked, confused. He sighed internally. It's been 3 days since I was officially assigned as Renee's personal guard. Walking behind her, he watched her closely. Her reactions were always distant, always icy. Staring at her back, he thought, she used to be so full of life as a child. But after her mother was killed by humans, she changed. As the author, I can't help but feel guilty. From a distance, a man shouted, "Renee, Arsene, the patriarch wants to see you both." The call made Arsene flinch. He was clearly still shaken by their last encounter. Following the summons, the two of them stood before Crete once more. Arsene quickly pieced it together. This must be about Renee entering Saitan. Despite her success in the raid, Crete didn't grant her permission. He spoke calmly. Saitan is not a place one enters lightly. With your current strength, you'd die before you ever got the chance to avenge your mother. A dangerous energy erupted from Renee, sending chills down Arsene's spine. I shouldn't be here, he thought, regretting every step that brought him to this moment. But then Crete continued, however, if you bring Arsene as your bodyguard, I'll allow you to go. Both of them froze in disbelief. Renee immediately shook her head. No. Arsene's chest sank. She really does hate me that much. Huh? His mind drifted to everything he knew. Saitan, it's the underworld academy of the demon realm. A hellish school for elite youth, constantly clashing with the Royal Academy, the one attended by the main cast. He recalled the tragedies. In that timeline, so many students died, including Renee. It's a ticking time bomb of death. Still, he looked at her face, unyielding, determined. Why would she be so desperate to go to a place like that? He paused, considering what he'd do in her place. But then his expression shifted, and his thoughts solidified. No, maybe that's exactly where I need to be. It might be the best place to start building my own power. I know nearly every major event that takes place between the Royal Academy and Saitan. A daring thought flickered across his mind. Yeah, let's give it a shot. Arson quickly accepted Kreet's offer, but not without a counter. I have one condition. He hesitated slightly under the Patriarch's piercing stare. If I'm being dragged into this, I might as well get something out of it. Standing firm, he said clearly, I want something related to mana. Kreet let out a wicked chuckle, clearly amused. Oh, I thought you'd ask me to remove that thing instead. A shiver ran down Arson's spine. He still hasn't realized the parasite's gone. Renee's sharp, suspicious gaze landed on him, making his skin crawl. Still, Kreet nodded with mock generosity. Arrogant bastard, not a difficult request. I'll allow it. Then, turning to Renee, he said coolly, you may go. She bowed with formal respect. Yes, father. But as she walked toward the door, she turned her head, eyes cold, filled with malice, and stared daggers at Arson. The sheer force of her aura made him flinch. She really hates the idea of traveling with me that much, he thought uneasily. Now alone with Kreet, Arson braced himself. So, what exactly is he going to give me? A mana potion? A magical artifact wouldn't be bad either. Kreet broke the silence. What I'm about to give you is a treasure passed down through our bloodline. That's why I sent my daughter away. Her bloodline would have reacted. Arson blinked. A family heirloom? With a wave of his hand, Kreet began channeling power. I know your mana reserves are pitiful. You'll be dying in Renee's place anyway, so this is the least I can do. His voice turned low and eerie. Come closer. I'm going to pass on the Bears family's mana cultivation technique. Arson's breath caught. A mana cultivation technique? From the Bears family? Kreet's voice echoed powerfully throughout the chamber. O demon god, grant this servant clarity within the chaos. Deliver us trials worthy of your name. And do not let 1,000 demons starve. But do not place us into temptation, for if you do, your name shall be exalted. Arson fell to his knees, overtaken by an unseen force that seemed to manipulate his very mind. He bowed reverently before Kreet. The Patriarch looked down at him, satisfied. A normal man would have gone insane from hearing that incantation. Kreet said, his voice filled with dark amusement. You're quite the curious one. With this cultivation technique, your mana will be granted directly by the demon god himself. That power will help you achieve whatever it is you seek. Arson trembled as he fought to stay conscious, his thoughts in a haze. The demon god, Kreet continued, calmly, almost as if reading his mind. However, it appears your family has ties to the 7 deadly sins. Arson blinked, uncertain. I didn't know. Kreet smirked wickedly, his expression twisting into something grotesque. No matter. I've already implanted the parasite back into your body. Even if you were a spy, it wouldn't change a thing. Arson's mind reeled. Wait, what? My family is linked to the 7 deadly sins? I don't remember writing that into the story. Did I forget something? Go, Kreet ordered curtly. Yes, sir, Arson replied quietly, still stunned. Surrounded by the serene beauty of a forest clearing, Arson sat cross-legged, mana swirling around him in unstable waves. I'll train out here. My man is still too unstable to risk losing control near others. The dark power bubbling within him was alive, volatile and foreign. He tried to adapt, muttering under his breath, invoking the one whose power he now wielded. O demon god, the realization hit him like a chill down his spine. Once I accept the demon god's mana, I'll never be able to use human mana again. But do I even have a choice? Suddenly, a sinister voice whispered through the trees, calm, deadly, and filled with contempt. You are a filthy half-breed. Arson's eyes flew open, his body tensed as a figure materialized, wreathed in darkness. No way, don't tell me that thing actually came to life. The creature, emanating overwhelming energy, spoke again. its voice mocking and venomous. I never imagined you would carry the blood of that child. No, you reek of a filthy traitor's lineage. Arsene stared, stunned by the sheer force radiating from the being. He forced out a question through gritted teeth. Are you the demon god? The air around him warped. The voice answered, deep and resonant. Yes, though the world tends to call me the god of arrogance. Arsene asked the question as if he already knew the answer. Are you planning to kill me? The creature responded calmly, explaining in a low, almost thoughtful voice. If I wanted to kill you, you'd have been dead the moment you opened your mouth. But for some reason, I don't. There's something about you, something burning inside you that feels familiar. The same sin that once consumed me now burns in you as well. The being leaned closer, its presence overwhelming. I feel a strange sense of kinship. So I'll grant you a mark, an insignia for one walking a path like mine. This mark proves that you can wield my power, the power of the prideful betrayer. But heed this well. Do not let your pride rob you of your clarity. Arsene raised his hand, watching in awe as power surged into his body. His mind buzzed, caught between fear and exhilaration. So I borrowed strength from a demon god. This mark, this tattoo, it's like earning 3 extra lives. He touched the forming symbol, unease growing in his chest. At this rate, my whole body's going to be covered in these things. But he had no idea that someone had witnessed everything. From behind the tree, a figure stood silently, eyes locked onto him, feeling a presence. Arsene turned sharply, and there she was. Renee. His heart sank. Why is she here? Was she eavesdropping? Suddenly, she whispered something that sent a chill down his spine. Black Priest. Arsene's eyes widened. What? A full month passed since Arsene had received the mark from the demon god. Looking over his stats, he couldn't help but feel a thrill of satisfaction. Race. Half-demon. Attribute. Chaos. Gift. Position swap 2. Traits. Immersion enthusiast. Characteristics. Fascination. Focus. Killing intent. Darkness. Mana control. Eyes of pride. Mana. 341 1035. His progress was undeniable. He smiled, pleased. All the hard work paid off. I didn't expect my mana to triple this fast. It must be due to those 2 characteristics, fascination and focus. At this rate, I might surpass even the heirs of the 6 great families in the human realm. He clenched his fist, eyes burning with ambition. With my current strength, even that hidden region, I could conquer it now. But as he glanced at Renee, a sigh escaped him. Still, why is she training right in front of my house? Why not in the training grounds like everyone else? Unable to hold back, he finally spoke up. Excuse me, milady. She turned, calm and graceful, and bowed in formal acknowledgement. Yes, Arsene thought to himself. Well, at least she's not avoiding me like before. That's a good start, but she clearly thinks I'm some kind of black priest. He let out a quiet sigh. Can't really blame her though, only black priests can communicate with demon gods in this world. Honestly, it's probably for the best that she didn't hear what I said to him. Still, if she starts treating me like some kind of superior, weird rumors will spread in the family. He finally spoke. Milady. Yes, she responded promptly. He took a breath and tried to express himself calmly. Milady, what are you thinking? I'd like to ask that you treat me the same way you used to. Renee looked at him, clearly conflicted. But, I'm only following Lord Crete's orders to protect you. Please, just act natural around me. She hesitated, then looked away. In that case, she turned back and said curtly, bring me some water. Arsene blinked in surprise. Huh? She stopped and said matter-of-factly. You told me to treat you naturally. Didn't you? I'm exhausted and thirsty after training. He stared at her, wondering how things escalated so fast. I mean, I got what I wanted. But somehow this feels wrong. As expected from someone born into a prideful family, she switches attitudes in the blink of an eye. Move it, she said sharply. Yes, ma'am, he replied, exhaling in resignation. Guess I'll just have to do whatever she asks now. Standing beside her, sword in hand, Arsene's mind drifted elsewhere. I need to conquer that territory soon. But Renee keeps getting in the way. I barely have any time left. I need to act before the main character crosses the demon realm ahead of me. I need that relic to survive Saitan. Milady, he called out, voice calm but deliberate. How are your preparations for enrolling at Saitan coming along? She looked at him, clearly puzzled. Why the sudden question? He quickly gave her a reason to keep suspicion at bay. You'll be facing all kinds of ruthless people there. I'm only asking because I'm concerned for your safety. Renee answered offhandedly. I've already packed everything I need. You sure about that? He asked, watching her tuck items into a basket. She glanced back. Why do you ask? Maybe double-checking wouldn't be a bad idea. He suggested gently. If you realize later that you forgot something important, I don't want you to run into trouble because of it. Renee shot him a suspicious look. Her voice sharp and direct. What are you trying to say? Just get to the point. Arson immediately waved it off, scrambling to come up with a cover. It's nothing like that. I'm just concerned about your well-being. After all, I am your escort. But Renee wasn't buying it. She stared straight through him, her tone turning cold. Liar. Where are you planning to sneak off to without me? Arson clenched his teeth in frustration. Damn it. She didn't fall for it. Her voice darkened further. Do you hate me or something? Shit. He cursed again in his head, scrambling to salvage the situation. It's not like that at all. I just heard about a territory nearby and thought I'd try conquering it. That's all. Please understand, I only wanted to secure the area for your safety. Internally, he was pleading. Come on, just buy it, please. After an uncomfortably long silence, Renee finally spoke. Now that I think about it, I did forget something. Arson perked up like he'd just won the lottery. Then, why don't you go back in? She cut him off coldly. Warm up. It hit him like a bucket of ice water. He blinked, confused. Sorry? What? I haven't finished my warm-up yet, she said matter-of-factly, drawing her sword. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, she added, I'll come with you to this territory. If it's nearby, we can probably wrap it up today. Right? Arson's brain short-circuited for a moment. Why yes, milady. She barked the next words with unsettling enthusiasm. Then what are you waiting for? Where is this territory? A grim and unsettling image flashed through his mind, shadows creeping along the edges of his thoughts. It's called the Undying Domain, he muttered, barely able to hide the dread in his voice. The Undying Domain had once been ruled by necromancers, but now it was overrun by soldiers turned into vengeful spirits, after the necromancers were wiped out in the war between humans and demons. The place had fallen into disarray. After a brief pause, Renee spoke quietly. I know that place well. Just mentioning the name of the domain alone is enough to make me uneasy. She hesitated, but then continued. It's probably at least a mid-high tier territory. By now, the number of soldiers there has definitely increased. Having me along could be useful. However, the problem is that traveling together would make escaping the estate even harder. If our attempt to escape is discovered, word will reach Crete in no time. After a moment of reflection, Wu Yin tried to reassure her. If it's too much of a burden, maybe you shouldn't come. He added, if the head of the family finds out you left without his permission. Before he could finish, she cut him off with a firm reply. It's fine, she then said. I know a secret escape route. With that, Renee led him through the forest's edge and towards the ruins of an ancient city wall. When they arrived, Renee pointed to a low archway near the ground, nearly hidden by the thick green grass. Here, she said. Wu Yin complimented her. You seem pretty familiar with this place. He thought to himself, she must sneak out here often. Arson turned to Renee and said, let's go, before we're spotted. She nodded. All right. After they passed through the secret passage and the old wall, they were met with a breathtaking view of towering mountains. Below them, the land was barren, covered in rocks and gravel, with a chilling and oppressive atmosphere blanketing the entire area. After looking around for a while, Wu Yin asked, all right, how much further do we have to go? Renee didn't rush to answer. She turned back to look at him, her expression a mix of coldness and uncertainty. Seeing her reaction, Wu Yin quickly clarified, I don't have a reason to leave the estate, so I'm not really familiar with the surrounding terrain. Only then did Renee respond. Oh, we're almost there. Just need to cross that part. After a long period of silent trekking over mountains and hills, Wu Yin finally broke the silence. We're probably close now. Renee maintained her usual cold demeanor, responding in a curt manner. Yeah. After more traveling, the two finally arrived at the Undying Domain. Wu Yin said, looks like we're here. The area outside the domain was as desolate as it could get, ruined walls and debris scattered everywhere. The ground around them was so barren that no plants could grow. Seeing the desolation of this land, Renee couldn't help but curse. Damn it, that bastard Cerberus's spawn. Arsene thought to himself. I guess she's calling them a bastard. I have to keep my bloodline a secret from her at all costs. He continued his thoughts. Only I know the way into this domain. After scanning the area for a while, he turned to Renee and said, I think we can enter by digging here. She immediately responded, all right. Deep beneath the largest stone statue were the decayed soldiers guarding the land. After digging for a while, the hatch leading to the undying domain was revealed. Its surface was carved with intricate symbols and floral patterns. Arsene assessed it and was sure this was the entrance. He spoke up first. I'll lead the way. But Renee refused, saying, no, I'll go first. They entered the passage, where the hallway was brightly lit by torches. Wuyan exclaimed, it's brighter inside than I expected. They stopped before an ancient, yet ominous castle, and Renee announced, over there, we've arrived at the right place. This place is on a whole different level compared to the bear's domain. I bet there are at least 100 fresh graves here. She signaled, let's go. Arsene immediately agreed. All right. As they began to move, the ground suddenly erupted with human skeletons controlled by magic. Emerging from the dirt, surrounded by enemies, Arsene said to Renee, Miss, I'll leave this to you. She nodded. All right. Without hesitation, Renee drew her sword and charged into battle against the surrounding skeleton soldiers. Wuyan, witnessing her throw herself into the fight, thought to himself, just as I expected, deciding to follow her was definitely the right choice. He then shouted, there's definitely a necromancer controlling them from the back. I'll catch up with you soon. As soon as one of the skeleton soldiers was struck down by Renee's sword, it immediately revived. Renee, anxious, asked, they came back to life? Not far from the battle, the mastermind behind the undead soldiers, controlling them through a magical orb, spoke up. You got some nerve. Coming here, he ordered. Destroy the intruders. Finish off the enemies continuously. But the skeletons still revived. Renee, frustrated, asked, they keep coming back. What should we do? At that moment, Wuyan rushed to her side, shouting, it's the necromancer behind all this. He continued, don't stop. Just keep moving forward. Miss. Renee immediately responded, what do you mean? A skeleton soldier lunged at them. As Arsene swiftly dealt with one of the skeletons, he suggested a plan to Renee. I know a way to clear them out easily. Without needing further explanation, she replied, got it. With that, the two of them charged towards the necromancer. The necromancer immediately ordered his skeletal minions to block their path. Wuyan shouted, we just need to get close to him. Wuyan thought to himself, everything will end once we destroy that necromancer's orb. Finally, I'll be able to use my new swap ability. Suddenly, a gigantic skeleton soldier appeared and attacked them both. Wuyan realized, it's not going to be that easy, and yelled, Miss Renee, charge. Renee stepped forward, striking the massive skeleton head-on, shattering its body into pieces. Seizing the opportunity, Arsene and Renee coordinated and executed their plan to eliminate the necromancer. Using their swap abilities, it was then that Arsene activated his new swap ability, swapping objects. Seeing the orb vanish, the necromancer was immediately thrown into confusion. Thanks to the new swap ability, Wuyan successfully grabbed the orb. Got it. The necromancer, seeing his orb destroyed, screamed, no. He shattered the orb, and with it, his magical power faded. As the necromancer dissipated, he yelled in fury, this can't be happening. Once the necromancer was gone, Wuyan smiled in relief. We did it, Miss. Renee, still catching her breath from the battle, replied softly, yeah. Suddenly, the spirits that had disappeared earlier spoke up. Thank you. Looking around, Wuyan whispered to himself, the tragedy here. It all happened because of what I wrote. May you all rest in peace. Unexpectedly, Renee asked him, is there anything else left to do here? He smiled, his usual cheerful self, and replied, it's time to collect our reward. Before them stood an ancient chest not far off. Wuyan grinned. Finally, I've got the item I needed. Fang of Darkness, a dagger forged from abyssal iron of the demon realm. It converts darkness into mana. increasing both sharpness and speed when in the shadows. Eternal full moon. A crafted ring that absorbs both mana sensitivity and moonlight. As Arsene slipped it on, he marveled. Whoa, with this, I'll be able to use my darkness trait to its fullest. But this ring, it's nice, but I don't really need it. Suddenly, he turned to ask Lady Renee, why don't you take the ring? I'll take the dagger, she replied, agreeing with him. Alright then, Arsene said. Well, in that case, let me. Without finishing his sentence, he gently slipped the ring onto Renee's finger. The moment he did, she instinctively pulled her hand back. Her cheeks flushed red in an instant. What's with that reaction? Arsene wondered. Does wearing a ring carry some deeper meaning for demons or something? Seeing her flustered, he asked, so, what do you think? Renee replied shyly. It's really nice. I'm glad you like it, Arsene said. He then sat down next to the treasure chest, which was overflowing with gold coins, and continued, since I took care of the boss, I'm claiming all the gold. No sooner had he finished his sentence than Renee's sword was at his throat. Realizing his misstep, Arsene quickly backtracked and proceeded to split the loot, down to the very last coin. After they cleaned up the domain, they returned to the Min estate, spending their days either helping Renee with chores or training mana. A month passed like that. As a half-demon with a chaos affinity, the talent position swap, and unique traits like immersion interest, focus, dark intent, mana control, and mana eyes with a mana level of 1035-1297. Arsene thought to himself, I've made some decent progress. Nearly 1300 mana gained, that puts me right in the middle tier back in the demon realm. A few days later, Crete summoned Arsene and Renee. At the estate, her father stood before the two of them, his voice firm. It's time. You'll enter the academy now. The moment has come. He continued. You'll head to the capital today and begin enrollment. Then he asked, are you both ready? Arsene and Renee answered in unison. Yes, sir. Hearing their reply, he said, go on. I don't think farewells are necessary. Renee bowed her head silently, a hint of sorrow in her eyes. Before turning to leave, Arsene followed suit, replying respectfully, yes, I'll head out with the lady now. Sir. Just before he left, Crete spoke to Arsene privately. I expect you to do well. Arsene responded with a polite, yes, sir. Outside, the carriage was already waiting for them. They were set to depart immediately. From above, Crete watched them silently. Arsene glanced up and thought to himself. He said he wouldn't see us off. But maybe demons feel the same way about their children as humans do. I was anxious about what lay ahead. But now, things have already begun. Arsene silently vowed to himself, I'll achieve my goals at the academy. As the carriage rolled on, he couldn't help but notice, she hasn't said a word since we left. Did I do something wrong? Catching a glimpse of Arsene sneaking glances at her, Renee thought to herself. At first, I didn't like him. He seems suspicious, but he's more handsome than I expected. Noticing the heavy silence hanging between them, Arsene blurted out awkwardly, haha, nice weather today, huh? Renee continued silently observing him. Even so, she thought, his words and actions still lack weight, and his strength is far from where it needs to be. Is he really a priest candidate? Seeing that Renee had been staring at him this whole time, Arsene grew more uneasy. Why does she keep looking at me like that? At that moment, Renee tried to calm her nerves. How foolish. I literally saw him talking to the demon god. So why am I still doubting him? Did I mess things up already? Arsene kept wondering to himself, feeling the growing discomfort. Just like Arsene, the young lady kept her thoughts to herself. Her eyes drifted to the ring on her finger, and she quickly looked away. Flustered. An eternal vow. That's what it means in the demon realm when someone of the opposite sex puts a ring on your finger. He did that, without saying a word. She looked down again, then thought, what kind of vow did he make? I'm so curious. Suddenly, Arsene broke the silence. Lady Renee, we'll be arriving in about an hour. That's earlier than expected. Huh? She turned to glance at him, then immediately looked away. She replied, fine. Arsene hesitantly asked, Lady Renee, did I do something wrong? I just want to get some sleep, she said curtly. He responded, alright, at least we've finally arrived. Looking out quietly, Arsene took in the view around him and thought, so this is the capital of the demon realm? Still, it didn't look all that different from the human world. It has a medieval feel to it, he murmured. Though, there are some noticeable differences, like the people. Some of them have horns or other physical traits. The elite demons stand out even more. Tattoos, that guy has one on his neck. Just like me. Noticing Arsene zoning out, Renee snapped. What are you waiting for? Hurry up. Startled, Arsene stammered. Yes, my lady. As they started moving, he asked, so, where are we headed now? The entrance exam is at noon. 2 days from now, Renee replied. We need to register before then. Arsene suggested quickly. If it's still 2 days away, why don't we explore the capital in the meantime? She shot back coldly. I'm not in the mood. The chill in her response stunned Arsene so much that the smile usually plastered on his handsome face disappeared instantly. Trying to lighten the mood, he pressed on. Maybe you didn't let me finish. We don't have time. She interrupted flatly. Let's just get registered. Didn't she stay shut in ever since her mother died? Arsene wondered. Man, I really can't figure her out. As they arrived at the academy, Arsene marveled at the campus. So this is the academy. Wow, it's massive, easily 3 times the size of a regular university. From the front desk, the proctor called out, you're registered. Come back in 2 days. Next, Arsene stepped up and said, we're here to register for the entrance exam. The examiner eyed him up and down and asked, what are you supposed to be? Huh? Arsene blinked. You don't look like a demon. The man said bluntly, clutching his pen tightly. The man's expression twisted with anger. A half-demon. And you think you can just waltz in here and register? He raised his voice. Sure, we may have lost the war. But what do you think this place is? Huh? Taking in every word of the man's hostility, Arsene sighed internally. Yeah, I can already see this is gonna be a rough road ahead. The registrar was furious, not holding back as he hurled insults directly at Arsene. It's because of trash like you. A sharp voice cut him off. What's going on here? Renee's voice rang out clearly as she approached the registration desk. Arsene turned toward her, looking flustered, while the registrar stood stunned. He stared up at her in awe. Those horns? This is truly a rare intake. I never expected to see a child of the 7 great Sin clans. His tone immediately softened. If you're here to register, please state your family name and status. Calm and composed, she replied. Bear's family. Renee. Then she added pointedly, and this is my escort. He'll be enrolling alongside me. The registrar reluctantly began filling in the forms but continued muttering complaints under his breath. A half-blood as an escort? Looks like the Sin clans have really lowered their standards. And the academy just lets anyone in these days. Renee cut him off coldly. That's enough. Her tone was sharp, her killing intent unmistakable, hand resting on the hilt of her sword. She glared at him without mercy. I won't stand by while you insult the Bear's family. The man flinched, clearly shaken. He quickly backpedaled, murmuring, ahem. Of course. We don't discriminate against candidates based on background. Just, forget what I said. Louder now. He asked formally. Please state your family and identity. Arsene answered clearly. PC family. Once the registration process was complete, the man reminded them, you're now registered. Be sure to attend the entrance exam on the scheduled date. Arsene reflected quietly. During the Human-Demon War, half-bloods sided with humanity because they were generally stronger. It's only natural demons resent us for that. I'm angry too, but there's nothing I can do right now. As the two of them turned to leave, it was clear Renee still hadn't let the incident go. Both she and the registrar wore visible scowls of resentment. Trying to lift the mood, Arsene said, all right, Lady Renee, let's go find a place to stay. They soon arrived at a nearby inn. This place looks fairly clean, Arsene commented. Renee didn't share his enthusiasm. She frowned and muttered, all the inns here are so old. He tried to reassure her. Well, there's not much we can do. We don't exactly have money to burn. Arsene thought to himself, the 10 gold coins Krieg gave us are just enough to cover living expenses for a month. The Bear's family's been struggling since the war, so I can't exactly ask for more. Turning to Renee with a smile, he said, all right, shall we head in? As the door opened, a warm greeting rang out from inside. Renee scanned the interior while Arsene cheerfully greeted the innkeeper. Do you have any rooms available for 2 nights? He asked. Yes, we do. The innkeeper replied. Then he asked, "Will the two of you be sharing a room?" Renee flinched, her cheeks immediately flushing red. Arsene quickly answered, "No, please give us 2 separate rooms." Renee avoided eye contact, still flustered. The innkeeper seemed slightly surprised. "Oh, yes, of course." He handed them the keys and said, "2 rooms for 2 nights. Meals included. That'll be 2 gold coins. The rooms are on the 2nd floor." Arsene handed over the money, thinking to himself, this amount equals about 200.000 human currency, not bad at all. Renee quickly made her way upstairs. "I'm going ahead," she said curtly. Arsene could only watch her go. He nodded and called after her, "I'll bring the luggage up later. Lady Renee, please get some rest." She glanced back and replied, "All right, you too." As she disappeared up the stairs, Arsene thought to himself, she's always lived in a huge mansion. This might be the first time she's slept somewhere like this. Well, she'll probably get used to it soon. The sun dipped low, casting warm hues across the sky as evening settled in. Arsene looked out the window and thought, time for me to get some rest too. The next 2 days are going to be big. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the lattice windows of the academy. The sky was a clear, vivid blue. A guard shouted loudly, "All examinees, please enter and follow the instructions." Arsene and Renee joined the flow of the large crowd moving forward. He glanced around and thought, there are so many people. Are there at least 100 candidates here? Once everyone had gathered inside the designated area, Arsene began to feel uneasy. I didn't expect this many demons to be signing up just to fight humans. I need to be extra careful not to expose my identity. A loud announcement rang out. From this point on, please present your identification and board the train in order. Arsene was stunned. A train? He blurted out. Just as he said it, a sleek, otherworldly train sped into view, gliding in through a glowing dimensional gate. Everyone around gasped in amazement, and Arsene couldn't help but marvel as well. A train? I didn't see that coming. It traveled through an enchanted spatial pathway, according to rumor. A labyrinth of dimensional gates had been constructed to prevent intrusions. The only way to reach the true academy was by train. Arsene and Renee boarded. Looking out the window, Arsene muttered in awe, "So the massive fortress we saw outside? That was only one part of this place? Just how big is this academy?" The train accelerated at an incredible speed, forcing the two of them to grip their seats tightly. Then came another announcement. "We are nearing the academy. Please brace yourselves." As the majestic view came into sight, Arsene could hardly believe his eyes. The academy was breathtaking, grand, magnificent, beyond anything he'd imagined. "We finally made it," he said to Renee. She responded simply, "Yeah." The train came to a stop within the academy grounds. Arsene carefully extended a hand to help Renee off. Another announcement followed quickly. "All examinees, please proceed according to instructions to the main hall, where the entrance exam will take place." Everyone moved quickly, stepping through a towering doorway. Standing in the vast entrance hall, Arsene couldn't help but tilt his head back in awe. This place is enormous. It's overwhelming. He finally took a moment to glance at the others around him. Most of them are young demons. I wonder if any other heirs of the 7 great Sin clans are here too. Suddenly, 3 individuals appeared, dressed distinctly from the rest. One of them, a man with purple hair, wore a massive sword strapped to his waist and gave off an intimidating aura. The other candidates only dared to sneak glances at the trio. They're not students, Arsene thought. Judging by those uniforms, they must be instructors. He smiled to himself. If I can leave a good impression on them, maybe life here won't be so hard. Just then, Renee said abruptly, "Time's up." Arsene blinked in confusion. The grand doors that had been wide open just moments before slammed shut with a thunderous boom. Everyone jumped, a ripple of unease spreading through the hall. The light in the hall began to dim. Everyone looked up in confusion. A cold sweat trickled down Arsene's back as he thought, it's clearly daytime right now. What kind of magic is this? What kind of exam are they putting us through? Suddenly, a chilling voice echoed through the hall, silencing the crowd. A spotlight flared above the high balcony, revealing a figure with fierce red eyes and long arcane markings etched from her neck up to her face. She gazed down with disdain and sneered, "Welcome to the academy, you pathetic fools." Her voice turned menacing. So many of you eager to die this year. Huh? No one could help trembling under the weight of her words. Arsene felt his entire body tense. Unbelievable, her voice alone is enough to crush us like this? Then she let out a twisted laugh as a powerful light began radiating from her body. All right, she yelled. Enough small talk. The bright green light blazed out, flooding the hall with an overwhelming force. Everyone staggered under the sheer pressure. Lady Renee, Arsene called out anxiously. Renee struggled to maintain her balance but stayed composed. Focus on the test, she said firmly. It wasn't just any light, it had weight, force, and intensity. Some candidates clutched their necks in agony, gasping for air before collapsing to the floor. Arsene gritted his teeth and fought to stay on his feet. The two oddly dressed observers from earlier stood to the side, watching without the slightest trace of concern on their faces. The man with short hair chuckled. The headmaster's taste is twisted as ever. Wouldn't you say? The tall, broad-shouldered man with purple hair replied coolly. No matter how talented they are, if their will is weak, they're useless. That woman, the one radiating the crushing light, was none other than Headmaster Lucian, the ruler of the academy. She laughed while watching the chaos below. Her personal supervision of the entrance exam's first phase wasn't just for show. This was the mental endurance test, designed to measure how much suffering the candidates could take, and whether they'd be able to resist torture and keep secrets if captured by humans. 5 minutes have passed, said the short-haired man. Hardly anyone still standing. That should be enough. Arsene was barely managing to hold on, trembling violently. Renee, however, looked unfazed. The short-haired man seemed a bit disappointed. Only 8 still holding out. I had high hopes, considering how many signed up this year. But the man with purple hair kept watching intently. About 40% made it past the 5-minute mark. That's significantly more than last year. That's a relief. A few silhouettes remained steady under the oppressive force from Headmaster Lucian. Rumor had it that this year's intake included heirs from the 7 great Sin clans. Judging from this, the rumors were true. You're right, said the short-haired man. Now that you mention it, I see it. Suddenly, the purple-haired man narrowed his eyes and looked toward Arsene, who was still trembling. Nearly at his limit. Who's that kid? He asked. He doesn't look like one of the 7 great Sin heirs. The short-haired man followed his gaze and smirked. Yeah, weird, right? But he's managed to stay conscious for almost 10 minutes now, he remarked. But it doesn't look like he'll last much longer. Just as he said that, Arsene finally dropped to his knees, his strength faltering. But then, something changed. The man with the purple hair suddenly stiffened, a strange sensation creeping over him. Wait, something's wrong. Without warning, a horrifying surge of black energy erupted from Arsene, spreading like a shockwave in all directions. It was dark, chaotic, and completely unnatural. Both men stared in shock. Even Headmaster Lucian's eyes widened in surprise as she turned her gaze toward Arsene. What is that? A shadowy figure seemed to stir within him, an ominous presence far too dangerous to ignore. The man with the purple hair instantly drew his massive sword without hesitation. His voice was sharp and decisive. We have to kill him. Right here, right now. He didn't look like anything special. The man with purple hair kept his gaze on Arsene, who was still panting heavily, until the atmosphere around Arsene suddenly shifted, catching him off guard. What is this? That killing intent. It's completely emotionless. The aura radiating from Arsene sent chills down everyone's spine. It wasn't the primal bloodlust of a beast. It was cold, methodical, the murderous intent of a ruthless killer. The kind that saw taking a life as casually as picking a flower or squashing a bug. Instantly, every instructor's attention locked onto Arsene. Their bodies moved instinctively, reacting before their minds caught up. The man with the sword tightened his grip and took a step forward. Headmaster Lucian glanced at him. Something unspoken passed between them, and a flicker of unease crossed his face. Damn it, why do I feel nervous? Over a rookie? He thought. Beside him, the shorter man turned and simply gave a cryptic smile. Around them, nearly all the new students had collapsed to the floor. Arsene trembled violently but still managed to remain upright. His mind teetered on the edge. I'm going to lose it. I need something, anything to hold on. He gritted his teeth, forcing his thoughts through the chaos. Wait, what if I use my own killing intent? Maybe it's strong enough to push back against her aura. Knowing he didn't have much time left, Arsene took a gamble. I don't have a choice anymore. He let out a roar, his eyes slowly turning crimson as a fiery red aura of killing intent burst from him, engulfing his body. Headmaster Lucian narrowed her eyes and gave a faint smirk. You're doing quite well. Shall I raise the pressure a little more? A distorted shadow surged toward Arsene, attempting to invade his mind, but his blood-red aura surged upward, forming a barrier to shield him. Lucian blinked, genuinely surprised. Meanwhile, Arsene gasped for air, standing up straight as the pressure began to subside. It worked. I feel like I can finally breathe. Much better now. He turned quickly. Right. How's Renee holding up? Renee stood calmly, almost unaffected. Of course she is, Arsene thought. She really is something else. He scanned the remaining candidates, those who still stood despite the trial. They were the successors of the 7 deadly sins clans. There was Balton, the heir of envy, with piercing yellow eyes. Prone, the daughter of lust, with 2 sharp horns curling from her forehead. Samuel, the gluttonous heir, with vivid green eyes. Aaron, the mysterious heir of sloth. Guwar, the brawny successor of faith. And finally, Renee, her presence calm yet commanding. Each of them was a well-crafted character, complex and sincere in their own right. But tragically, their fates were sealed, every single one of them, destined to fall by the hands of the protagonists. Arsene's gaze lingered on Renee, his expression tightening. Then, all 6 of them noticed her. That long white hair, those red eyes, and the crown of thorned bronze resting atop her head. She stood unaffected by the headmaster's pressure, as if it didn't even register. Arsene's heart skipped a beat. No, it can't be. There was no mistaking her. That girl, those crimson eyes, she was the future's worst villain. The demon realm's greatest catastrophe. The demon lord, the successor of Wrath. Diane. A voice rang out through the hall. The first trial is now complete. But Arsene could hardly focus on the announcement. The demon lord is always born from the house of Wrath, so what is she doing here? Now, as a mere applicant? He stared at her, stunned. The future demon lord had come to the academy, posing as just another candidate. Is there something going on that I don't know about? Arsene wondered. Suddenly, a loud shout caught his attention. I failed? That's impossible, someone yelled. It was chaos. Students were protesting in groups. Outraged by the results, the man with purple hair stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching silently. What kind of exam was that? Don't you dare touch me. Do you even know who my father is? One student shouted in indignation. Bring the headmaster out here right now. Before the boy could continue, a large hand suddenly grabbed his face and lifted him off the ground. It was the purple-haired man. His cold eyes glared into the boy's soul. I don't care who your father is. Do you understand? The student could only tremble. Frozen with fear, the man let go, letting the boy fall hard to the floor. Then he turned to address everyone. Don't make me repeat myself. No one dared move. The student sat stunned on the ground. The man raised his voice. Those who couldn't last even 5 minutes in the first trial don't belong here. A harsh announcement rang through the hall. Close the gates. Arsene let out a quiet sigh of relief, a faint smile tugging at his lips. This academy really is merciless. Good thing I made it through. He turned to glance toward the headmaster once more, the strange woman whose aura had nearly crushed him. Then it clicked. Wait a minute, I've seen her before. Despite her cute appearance, she was one of the most powerful beings in the demon realm. Lucian, the headmaster of the academy, still held her sword tightly. I got lucky this time, but I can't let my guard down. The second trial's going to be even harder, and fewer people will pass. Just then, whispers and murmurs broke out all around him. Amazon, wait, did he just call her Renee? Isn't she the combat genius of the bear's family? Someone asked. Renee stood calmly, unaffected by the attention. Students were turning, whispering, casting glances her way. She really is famous, Arsene thought, watching quietly. Then another figure drew attention, an arrogant-looking boy with fiery orange hair. Surrounded by admirers. Well, that's no surprise, Arsene thought. They're all heirs of the 7 deadly sins clans. They held their own against the headmaster's pressure. Tears welled up in Arsen's eyes. But why is no one paying attention to me? Two shadows loomed behind him, eyes scrutinizing his every move. Then, Renee stepped forward toward him. So you made it too? Huh? Arsen turned to her and nodded. Yeah, I did. He thought for a moment. Maybe I should be satisfied. At least I've left an impression. I've shown them I'm not just another ordinary candidate. The instructors and even the headmaster will remember me. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the chatter. Attention! Everyone snapped to alertness. The purple-haired man stepped forward. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ares, and I'll be your instructor. A hush fell over the crowd, but rather than relief, most students broke into a cold sweat. Damn, someone whispered. He looks like the type to carry a sashimi knife in his pocket. Instructor Ares scanned the room. Congratulations on surviving the first trial, an assessment of your mental fortitude. That test was designed to see whether you could stay conscious under conditions similar to being tortured by humans in the future. Prone, the air of lust, crossed her arms with a smug grin, clearly unfazed. Also, Ares continued, the 8 candidates who endured until the very end will receive bonus points. And if you perform just as well in the second trial. He paused, then smirked. You'll earn access to the Academy's armory. Arsen could barely contain his excitement. The armory? I actually made it. Thank God I held on till the end. He thought, practically trembling with joy. But then he noticed it, an unmistakable wave of hostility. Cold, bitter stares closed in on him from all directions. He could practically feel the envy radiating from the others. Thick as smoke. Ares didn't pause. Now I'll explain your second trial, he announced. Renee stood silently beside Arsen, her attention fixed. For the second test, you will be showcasing your combat capabilities. More specifically, you'll demonstrate your talent and the weapons you are capable of using to fight against humanity. He let that hang for a moment before continuing. The class you are assigned to will depend heavily on how you perform in this trial. So keep that in mind. So that's what he meant. Our classes will be based on the kind of talent or weapon we wield. Arsen thought. Makes sense, I guess. But now I'm wondering, what kind of humans will we be facing? Before he could ponder further, Ares raised a hand. A faint green glow emerged from his palm, then began swirling wildly, growing in intensity. The enemy you'll face, and the scenario for your second trial, is this. The glow exploded into a massive vortex. From within the swirling magic, a figure emerged, looming, sharp-eyed, radiating power. On his chest was a tiger's head emblem, and in his hand, a long, gleaming sword. Gasps spread like wildfire through the students. Even Arsen froze. Wait a second. Isn't that? His heart skipped a beat. That's Ninai Cell, the strongest hero among the heads of the 6 great clans? The face of a living legend. Arsen stood there, stunned. Why is he here? This has to be some kind of twisted coincidence, right? But Renee remained as calm as ever. She turned to Arsen and asked evenly, do you know who that is? Of course I know. Arsen thought to himself. That's Ninai Cell, the head of the Ninai clan. He's not just any figure from the original story. His connection to the main character is written into destiny itself. That man was the protagonist's father, the Sword Saint, a man who built the mightiest clan from nothing but pure talent. Around him, students were already whispering in alarm. That's the Sword Saint. Are they trying to wipe us out from the start? One murmured to his companion. Arsen glanced around, so others recognize him too. Not surprising, he's crushed countless demon clans before. But Instructor Ares, ever composed, continued his explanation. Naturally, we're not expecting you to face the full power of the Sword Saint. He'll only be using, at most, 10% of his strength. Everyone quieted down to listen. Even so, the tension in the air thickened. Only 10%? Arsen thought. If he went all out, none of us would have a chance. Renee tilted her head slightly. Isn't 10% a bit too easy? Arsen gave a short laugh. Not at all. A monster is still a monster. Even weakened. He turned to look at the Sword Saint. Unease bubbling in his chest. Even at 10%, he could still level an entire city. How are we supposed to pass a trial this brutal? There had to be a clear threshold. Some criteria the instructors were using to measure success. Maybe I can use an info scroll, but they're expensive. And we only get a limited number of questions. Ares continued, voice steady. With your current capabilities, none of you could take him on alone. So we'll be forming teams of 4. To keep things fair, the top 8 performers from the first test will be assigned as team leaders. Placed in separate groups, the remaining participants will be distributed randomly. Arsene fell silent, deep in thought. The top 8, that has to include the 7 deadly sins heirs, and me. Looks like I got lucky being noticed. Meanwhile, Renee seemed completely unfazed by the admiring stares thrown her way by the other male students. She didn't even blink. She must be used to it. Arsene thought. Unlike me, the glares Arsene received were anything but admiring, cold, resentful, the kind that screamed, "You don't belong here. Must have been a fluke you even made it past the first trial." Then he felt a light touch. A small, delicate hand brushed his arm. Renee. She leaned in slightly and said softly, "Come back safe." Arsene smiled. "You too, Lady Renee. I hope you succeed." A voice echoed through the hall. "I'll now announce the teams." Starting with Group 1, moments later, Arsene's group was called. Group 33. Group Leader, Arsene. Members, Kinna, Chris, Sanchez. Arsene walked over to meet his team. Scanning the unfamiliar faces. "I don't recognize any of these names. Must be minor characters in the original story, ones that didn't really matter." Still, he offered a polite smile and introduced himself. "I'm Arsene. Nice to meet you all." The white-haired boy beamed. "Hey, I'm Chris, and this here's Kinna." The blonde girl waved cheerfully. "Hi there." The third member, however, wore a deep frown and didn't bother to respond. "That must be Sanchez." He glanced at Arsene with thinly veiled disdain. Then scoffed. "A half-breed as the team leader? What a disgrace to our noble bloodline." Arsene clenched his teeth but held back a retort. "Seriously? Even bottom-tier extras are looking down on me now? Does this guy think he's one of the 7 deadly sins heirs or something?" He turned back to the others, brushing it off. "Anyway, let's just do our best." Chris and Kinna both nodded. "Yeah, we'll give it our all." Arsene nodded, moving forward with planning. "First, let's assign roles. Could you all tell me what kind of weapons or abilities you use?" "Chris, you first." Chris eagerly raised his hands and began channeling mana. "My ability is mana shaping. I can generate this triangular prism and morph it into either armor or a sword." He formed the glowing shape midair, then reshaped it seamlessly. "It's not high damage, but it's very versatile." Arsene nodded approvingly. "Not bad. That'll be useful." Next, Kinna perked up. "I'm not really good at fighting. I'm more of a support type." "A support type?" Arsene asked. Kinna interlocked her fingers in front of her chest and chanted softly. A gentle wave of mana pulsed outward. "I pray to the demon god to boost ally speed." A soft glow surrounded Arsene. He paused for a moment, assessing. "I think, yeah, I feel a bit lighter." Kinna puffed out her cheeks in frustration. That's it? You're terrible." Arsene laughed nervously. "Sorry, just joking. It's a good spell." "Really? Well, it's better than nothing." He thought privately. "Though I can barely feel a difference. Honestly, I don't even know how she passed the first trial." He turned his attention to the brooding Sanchez. The boy finally moved and conjured a magic aura around his skin. "My ability is," he began, clearly pleased with himself. "Hardened defense." "Huh?" Arsene interrupted calmly. "Perfect for a vanguard role." Sanchez narrowed his eyes. "Now it's your turn," he challenged, stepping forward arrogantly. Whoosh! Arsene vanished from sight. In the blink of an eye, he reappeared right beside Sanchez, so sudden that the boy flinched in shock. "Teleportation," Arsene stated coolly, hand resting lightly on the hilt of his sword. "That's my ability." Sanchez went pale. Kinna and Chris gasped in admiration. "Whoa, that's amazing," Chris said. "Teleportation? That's incredible," Kinna added. Arsene chuckled. "Thanks, I appreciate it. Still," he thought to himself, "of course, I'm not about to show them everything just yet. You never know what variables might come into play." Arsene began laying out the strategy. "Positions are simple. Chris and Sanchez, since you're better at defense, you'll be up front. I'll stay in the middle. And Kinna, you'll support from the rear." He glanced at the others. "Everyone okay with that?" Kinna nodded. "Sounds good to me." Sanchez didn't say anything, but his silence was answer enough. A voice echoed across the field. "We will now begin the second trial. All teams, prepare yourselves. Arson turned to face the arena. So it begins. The instructor shouted. Group 1, step forward. Arson watched intently. Despite facing the infamous Sword Saint, the team's eyes still burned with resolve. Not bad. But in the next instant, the Sword Saint raised his blade, and with a single fluid motion, the entire team was sent flying, limbs flailing in the air. Arson's heart dropped. One of the students clutched his stomach, groaning on the ground in agony. I didn't even see him move. Was that really only 10% of his power? The instructor's voice rang out again. Next, Group 2. Just like the first, Group 2 was wiped out with a single effortless strike. The tension across the field thickened. Next, Group 3. Group 4. Step up, Ares shouted. 2 members of the team walked forward but stopped short. One of them turned to the instructor, hesitating. This is pointless. We don't stand a chance. Ares stared at them in silence for a beat, then said calmly, very well, you two may withdraw from the test. He looked at the remaining pair. And what about you two? Will you continue? Yes, we'll try, one of them replied resolutely. Arson narrowed his eyes, watching them closely. They're really going through with it. Then, it hit him. I see now. The real condition for passing this trial isn't winning. It's showing the will to fight, even when the odds are impossible. Chris gasped. Wait, they don't even have to fight? Arson smiled. Of course not. The remaining 2 students from Group 4 stepped into the arena. Group 4. Begin. Arson watched with a quiet thought. There's no way 2 people can stand against Ninai's cell. Let's see what happens. Again, with just a single move from the Sword Saint, both were sent flying. One of them cried out in pain, clutching their chest. Arson stared silently. If he had used real sword aura, they'd be cut in half by now. Chris trembled. Are we really supposed to fight a monster like that? Sanchez scoffed loudly. TCH, you're seriously afraid of a mere human? Arson chuckled. I can hear his knees shaking from here. Group after group was demolished in the same manner. Group 5, flattened. By the time Group 9 took the stage, the anxiety was tangible. The instructor called again. Group 10, step forward. We forfeit, came the immediate reply. Renee watched in silence, expression unreadable. One by one, the groups were called up. Group 20. Then Group 30. Arson kept count. By the time we reach Group 30, 5 teams have already surrendered. None have landed a single meaningful hit on the Sword Saint. Still, a few showed flashes of skill. Some teams began to last a little longer. One student managed to block a strike, if only for a split second. Chris gasped. He blocked it. Arson stayed silent, eyes narrowing. They're getting stronger. Each round, they're adapting. Their technique is improving. He turned his gaze to the Sword Saint, murmuring, I get it now. That's the real test here. Sanchez shouted with arrogance. It's almost our turn. Chris answered. I'm shaking already. Arson glanced over at them and said calmly, I've figured out how to pass the second trial. Sanchez looked confused. What do you mean? Arson smiled slightly. The criteria isn't to win. It's about standing your ground, even when faced with overwhelming power. Look how the instructors handled those who gave up. Look at the Sword Saint's restraint. It all points to one thing, resolve. Sanchez started to object. But why don't we just? Before he could finish, Instructor Ares called out. Next, Group 33. Arson drew his sword and grinned. Let's go try to defeat the Sword Saint. With our strength, we can do it. Sanchez flinched. What? But Chris and Kinna were fired up. Hell yeah, let's give it our best. Even if we lose fighting. Arson chuckled to himself. So what if I'm only a half-blood? With the talent of the strongest villain, I can win. They moved into formation. Arson raised his voice. All right, positions. Let's begin. Unlike the protagonist, I don't have a detailed script on Ninai's cell's abilities. I'll have to feel my way through this. Stay calm. Adapt fast. He turned to his team. Don't panic. Stick to your roles. Keep fighting. Chris nodded. Got it. Sanchez grunted. Yeah, I know. The Sword Saint began his approach. He's coming. Arson shouted. In a blink, the Sword Saint swung his blade. Chris's shield shattered instantly. He was sent flying upward, yelling in pain. Kinna, protect Chris. I'm on it. She rushed toward him. I'll soften the landing. Meanwhile, Arson kept his eyes on the front line. Sanchez is still in position. I know. Sanchez barked, clearly straining. The Sword Saint swung again. Sanchez took the hit head-on, his hardened body absorbing the brunt. I did it. I took the hit and stayed up. Sanchez roared triumphantly. Nice work. Arsene clapped his shoulder. But even as he encouraged his teammate, Arsene's eyes were locked onto the Sword Saint's movements. There, just before that second swing, I saw an opening. His instincts screamed. But no, it's too obvious. That's a trap. I'd better not take the bait. He tightened his grip on the sword. What's your next move, Sword Saint? Arsene's instincts screamed. Wait, is he laying a trap? Does he have something inside him? The thought hit him like lightning. He turned sharply toward his team. The second strike's coming, positions. Now. Chris gritted his teeth, desperately conjuring a shield. Damn it. Arsene's heart dropped. Chris is already at his limit. He glanced to the side. Sanchez's arms were starting to crack. One more hit and they'd fall apart. This is bad. Just one attack left them like this? He steadied his breath. Just a bit more. We have to endure just a bit longer. But the Sword Saint wasn't waiting. Another strike was coming. This one even stronger. The sheer pressure made Arsene flinch. Sanchez could feel it too. His stance faltering. It's stronger? He shouted back at Arsene. Panic in his voice. What are you waiting for? At this rate, we're all gonna die. We need to hold out just a little longer. Then, losing his cool completely, Sanchez roared, You crazy bastard. But Arsene didn't move, still calculating. We're the only team that's even survived the second strike. Is this what he's testing? The Sword Saint stood silent, his eyes fixed on the group. Watching, measuring. And then Arsene felt it. This pressure, it's not just strength. It's awareness. He's watching us. Waiting for something? Kinna rushed to Chris, shaking him. Chris. Arsene knelt beside him. You okay? Chris trembled, but nodded slightly. I know it's hard, Arsene said softly. But just trust me, one more time. Sanchez spun around, yelling. Arsene, what the hell are you doing? He's about to attack again. Chris looked up weakly. You got a plan, don't you? Arsene nodded. And then, without warning, he shifted, his body transforming again into that eerie, demonic form from earlier. I'll pierce that bastard's throat myself. Chris and Kinna gasped, stunned. The Sword Saint began moving, this time with clear intent. Sanchez saw it and shouted. He's coming. Arsene stepped behind Sanchez and said quickly. This time, you'll have to endure it without Chris's shield. Sanchez's face went pale. What? Are you serious? The Sword Saint struck, faster than before. Sanchez couldn't withstand it. The blow landed clean, blasting him into the air. But Arsene was already moving. He leapt upward, channeling his energy. Position swap. In an instant, Sanchez vanished, and Arsene stood alone in front of the Sword Saint. Another strike came, fierce and precise. Position swap. Arsene shouted again, aiming at the sword itself. He twisted through the air, and switched places with the Sword Saint's weapon. Now face to face with Ninai Cell. Weapon in hand, Arsene didn't hesitate. Die, Ninai Cell, he roared, lunging straight for his throat. Arsene dashed forward like lightning. Instructor Ares frowned in irritation, his eyes fixed intently on him. Renee couldn't help but watch as well. Suddenly, the Sword Saint's knee slammed straight into Arsene's chest. But luckily, Chris's barrier blocked the impact. A spray of red blood splattered onto the floor. Arsene gritted his teeth in pain, enduring it, thinking, that bastard, I have to hold on just a little longer. He struggled to dodge the next attack while continuing to unleash his dark power. A swirling black vortex enveloped him. Inside the vortex, Arsene thought to himself, if it weren't for Chris's protective barrier, I would have exploded from the inside by now. The position swap had failed, but at least he had trapped the Sword Saint. In front of him was the Sword Saint's back, surrounded by an absolute darkness, a pitch-black space without a single ray of light. Even Arsene couldn't see a thing inside. He furrowed his brow but reminded himself, I have the Shadow Fang. In this space, it was stronger than any weapon. Standing behind the Sword Saint, Arsene resolved to defeat him with everything he had. Suddenly, the Sword Saint sensed something. He spun around to face Arsene, catching him off guard. With blinding speed, he lunged forward, his fist aimed straight at Arsene. This guy really is a monster, Arsene thought. He spread his arms wide, a single eye glowing red. Arsene smirked slightly as the sword still in his hand suddenly appeared somewhere else. It was now behind the Sword Saint. Raising his hand in front of the Sword Saint, Arsene declared, "This time, the one who's trapped is you." Sword Saint. Not just one, but countless holy swords materialized within the space. Clenching his fist, Arsene shouted, "Shadow Fang, Black Sword Dance." A barrage of blades shot forward, relentlessly stabbing into the Sword Saint. Outside, everyone's attention remained fixed on the vortex. Chris was worried. What the hell is going on in there? Instructor Ares said calmly, "Looks like it's about to be over." The vortex gradually dissipated. Arsene stood there as if nothing had happened. The vortex completely vanished. The Sword Saint lay fallen on the floor. While Arsene remained standing, everyone was stunned, their eyes locked on Arsene's face, filled with satisfaction. In that silent atmosphere, Arsene thought, "I did it." The orange-haired guy looked at Arsene and exclaimed, "That was really impressive." Chris and Kinna rushed over excitedly. Chris praised him. "That was absolutely amazing." Kinna asked, "How did you pull it off?" Arsene just smiled. "It's all thanks to everyone working together so well." Then he turned to Kinna and asked, "What about Sanchez? He's a bit shocked, but the instructors are helping him recover." Arsene raised his sword and said, "I see. Well then, that's good." He stepped toward the fallen Sword Saint. "So, shall we finish this?" Chris and Kinna looked confused. "Finish? Isn't it already over?" Suddenly, the Sword Saint's leg twitched. Chris gasped, staring. "What are you doing?" Arsene glanced back and replied, "Well, don't we need to make sure he's really dead?" Instructor Ares stared intently. A seductive figure nearby murmured, "Hey, she's full of arrogance. With a half-demon, you're not bad." The man standing next to her said, "But compared to Fran, he's nothing special." "Boo-hoo, of course not." The woman continued with a fixed gaze. "He was born inferior. No matter what, his true nature will always show." She rambled on, unaware of how foolish and crude she sounded. Renee, radiating fierce killing intent, stood there staring at the woman. The woman seemed a bit unsettled. "Girl, what the hell is that? Who is she?" Renee glared angrily at her. The woman recognized the horns. "Is that Bear's? Why is she looking at me like that?" She trembled, whispering, "So scary." The people around whispered among themselves, confirming she was indeed the heir of the 7 deadly sins. They were stepping into a power struggle, and no one knew who would come out on top. The fanatics with the woman cheered loudly. "Obviously Fran, that little brat isn't even worthy to be a side dish." The woman thought to herself that maybe the girl wasn't actually that weak. Arsene suddenly noticed from behind and followed the gaze. "Wait, isn't that Renee? Why is she radiating such deadly intent?" Suddenly, someone behind called out, "Arsene Otto." It was Instructor Ares. He approached, staring closely, then turned and smiled, asking, "Yes? What is it?" Instructor Ares said seriously, "Don't you really know when I'm asking you?" Arsene responded nonchalantly, "No, I don't." Instructor Ares turned around and walked away. "From now on, I'll be keeping an eye on you." Arsene exhaled in relief, thinking, "What? I thought I'd get praised or something. Looks like I'll be watching Renee instead." Renee was about to fight another student. She was filled with murderous intent toward her opponent. Arsene was surprised. "Whoa, they're still going at it." He wondered aloud, "And who is the girl facing her? With blue eyes, long hair, and a single Oni horn on her forehead." She was Lauren, from the Lust clan. Fran? But why is she trying to fight Renee here? I've been so focused on the human world's affairs that I'm totally clueless about the demon realm. The girl named Fran suddenly noticed Arsene watching and shouted, pointing at him, "Hey, half-demon." Arsene was startled. "Huh? Why is she calling me out of the blue?" She pointed at him and yelled, "Become my slave." Renee, brimming with deadly intent, charged forward. Arsene shouted, "Renee." She leapt up, drawing her sword from her back, aiming straight at Fran. Fran frowned, startled by Renee's sudden attack and not having time to react. She looked a little scared and shouted at Renee, "Are you crazy?" Sensing the conflict between the students, Instructor Ares quickly shouted, "Stop." Renee looked up as he commanded. At the academy, all meaningless disputes are strictly forbidden. Fran was lucky to block Renee's strike and snap back. "Settle your personal grudges outside." Arsene let out a relieved breath. Phew. Ares stopped it just in time. Luckily, nothing happened with the 7 deadly sins before the enrollment ceremony. Renee sheathed her sword and turned away without a second thought. While Fran trembled uncontrollably. That girl's definitely got issues. Arsene thought. Sweating nervously, he approached her and asked, "Miss, are you all right?" Renee stared at him silently, since it was almost their group's turn. She only nodded, feeling awkward. Arsene noticed her wiping sweat off his forehead. Renee said softly, "Well done." Fran looked surprised and asked, "Whoa, what's your relationship? Are you dating a half-demon?" Arsene smiled inwardly, realizing that after passing the test, he was being treated better. He thanked her quietly. Renee looked at him seriously. "You're hiding your true strength, aren't you? To seem weaker." Arsene was taken aback. "Huh?" An announcement rang out. "Group 34, please step forward." Renee turned and walked away. "I have to go now. I won't tell anyone." Arsene stood silently, watching her leave. He had poured all his strength into passing. Did he really look that weak? Maybe she thought he was some minor noble. Suddenly, a voice called from behind Arsene. "You, state your name." Surprised, Arsene replied, "Me? Yeah, you. My name is Arsene." She pondered. Arsene, huh? Not a bad name. He wondered, "Why did you call me here?" "Why?" She thought to herself. "You interrupted me earlier." Crossing her arms seriously, she said, "Forget that lowly bitch bears and serve me." Calmly, she thought, "Now witness my irresistible charm. I'll take you from her and crush that girl's nose." Arsene turned around, uninterested. "Sorry, but it's my lady's turn now. Maybe next time," she shouted. Wait, isn't that effective?" Arsene grinned, finally getting to see Renee's full power. Behind him, Fran was furious. "You're ignoring me?" Renee's group looked strong. Just how powerful was she? Arsene was eager to find out, along with the rest of the 7 deadly sins. Both the Sword Saint and Renee radiated deadly intent. Facing each other, everyone was stunned. It was an intense standoff. Even more incredible than Arsene had imagined. She stomped her foot. Renee and her group remained calm, showing no tension at all. Everyone watched intently. The orange-haired guy laughed loudly. "She's pretty entertaining." Watching Renee stride toward the Sword Saint, Arsene panicked. Was she really heading straight for him? What was she thinking? Renee stared fiercely at the Sword Saint. The deadly auras between them clashed. Silence hung in the air as they waited. Then suddenly, both erupted into action. Renee swung her blade, slashing across the Sword Saint's body. Everyone gasped. Not only did the sword break in two, but his hand fell to the ground. Renee spun around and walked away. The roar of cheers from all the students echoed through the hall. Instructor Ares looked pleased and said, "HMPH. Not bad." Everyone chanted, "Renee, Renee." Arsene stood there stunned, unable to believe his eyes. "No way. Am I seeing this right? Did she really win that easily?" Suddenly, he realized why Ninai's cell hadn't attacked Renee when she came seeking her out. The instructor must have recognized Renee's level of power. Fran, standing nearby, commented, "Renee, huh, it's a shame I didn't get to see her humiliated by the Sword Saint. But at least if she wants to face me, she has to be capable of that much." Arsene was amazed. "You mean if all the daughters of the 7 deadly sins gathered together, they could defeat the Sword Saint for real?" She replied, "What? No one can defeat the Sword Saint right now. Maybe if the previous Demon King were still alive. Then possibly." Arsene asked again, "But what if the kids have skills that exceed 10% of the Sword Saint's power?" She reacted sharply. "Are you mocking me? Anyone with eyes can see that pathetic fake. Let alone anyone over 10% of the real Sword Saint's strength." Arsene was baffled. He looked toward the fake Sword Saint. "So I struggled against an imposter who's less than 1/10 the real power. I might be the creator of this world, but I know nothing about the demon realm." He smiled, but excitement stirred in his chest. "Let's see how things unfold." Another announcement rang out. "Next, Group 35. Only the 7 deadly sins remain." The test became easier for them, and perhaps influenced by Renee's trial. Other kids also defeated the Sword Saint. Group 40 passed, and the orange-haired guy laughed loudly. "Ha ha, too easy." Then came a girl, and the fights were so one-sided it was hard to tell the power difference among the 7 deadly sins children. Still, Arsene knew who the 2 strongest were, so there was no need to worry. Instructor Aries declared. The enrollment test is over. Everyone, gather in front of the podium. All the students paid close attention. We will announce the results of the second test. Everyone who participated in the battles has passed, regardless of win or loss. Others quietly thought, just as they expected, those who gave up failed. Renee remained calm, completely contrasting with the joyful crowd. Congratulations to those who passed. From now on, you are officially members of the academy and also official interns. Instructor Aries reminded everyone seriously, causing some concern among the students. But don't get too excited. A path of hell awaits you. So difficult it will make you want to quit. Finally, Instructor Aries spoke loudly. Those who have passed, gather for the enrollment ceremony in 2 days. Fran looked smug as she glanced at the instructor, while the 8 who defeated the Sword Saints stayed where they were. Renee turned and asked, why does he want us to stay? Arsene smiled and said, don't you think he's trying to reward us with that weapon vault he mentioned in the first test? Instructor Aries descended the stairs and walked straight toward the students who defeated the Sword Saint. All of you passed excellently. So as I promised, I will give you a chance to enter the weapon vault. The orange-haired guy eagerly raised his hand. I have a question. Instructor Aries looked at him and nodded. Go ahead, Intern Bolton. The boy spoke clearly. Can we take out as many weapons as we want? The Academy's weapons sound super useful. Arsene watched him intently, thinking silently. This is Leon Bolton, the son of Envy. His greed and curiosity have no limits. He had quite a memorable presence in my novel for a while. Instructor Aries frowned slightly and explained to him. No, using too many weapons will make it difficult to focus. So you're only allowed to choose one. As he spoke, Instructor Aries guided everyone. Since we don't have much time, I won't take any more questions. Follow me, and I'll take you to the weapon vault. Aries raised his hand and gently touched the wall in front of them. Then cast a barrier. Suddenly, a door flashed open before the students' eyes. Bolton looked extremely excited, while Arsene couldn't help but be amazed. Now, this was the privilege the Academy granted them. Whether they make the best or worst choices is entirely up to them. Arsene watched with suspicion. Is this really the weapon vault? Why does the door look like the entrance to a dungeon? Instructor Aries beckoned, pointing toward it. You will enter one by one, in the reverse order of the second test. Just a precaution, each of you will be checked when you exit. Arsene frowned. Wait, so I'm last? So he can do whatever he wants with me? Meanwhile, the orange-haired guy remained excited. Awesome, I'm first. He stepped forward to the door, waving to everyone. I'll pick the best one. Haha. Instructor Aries frowned and shouted. Quiet, get inside. Renee calmly said. I'll choose an artifact since I already have a weapon. What about you, Arsene? He smiled. I think I'll also pick an artifact. Suddenly, he hesitated, worried. Wait, does that mean everyone else will do the same? Will there be anything left for me to choose? Renee looked at him, puzzled. Instructor Aries called out loudly. Who's next? Step inside. The orange-haired guy returned wearing a crown, proudly showing it off. Haha, isn't this cool? Arsene glanced at the 2 others who had picked their weapons as they wished. Feeling a bit disappointed, just as I expected, everyone's coming out with artifacts. Maybe I should choose armor instead. Renee softly reminded him. Arsene, it's your turn. Arsene looked at her and said with interest. I saw you chose a bracelet. Can I ask what its special ability is? She happily explained. You'll find out once you're inside. There's a description. Arsene was surprised. A description? Renee smiled. Yes, but some items don't have descriptions. Arsene nodded thoughtfully. I see. He thought to himself. Some items don't have descriptions. Does that mean they're worthless? He didn't think so, after all. They were being carefully stored. Stepping past Instructor Aries, Arsene was sure there was something special about them. The instructor said firmly. You're last. His expression serious and cold. He said to Arsene, if you have anything to say, say it now. Arsene thought, his face clearly telling him to keep quiet. Sweating slightly and a bit embarrassed, he asked, may I ask what it means when an item has no description? Instructor Aries answered, it means we haven't figured out exactly what it is. Arsene eagerly pressed, so you don't know who the original owner was or what abilities it might have? Exactly. If you're lucky, you might get an item with incredible power. But if unlucky, you could suffer a curse for the rest of your life. Arsene froze. Instructor Ares urged. We don't have much time. So go in. With interest, Arsene stepped inside, wondering whether being last was good or bad luck. The door opened, and he walked in. The room was fairly bright and tidy. He hoped nothing would suddenly jump out. He saw a glowing door on the other side, knowing that must be where to go. Entering a chamber filled with many stored items, Arsene passed by a red sword and exclaimed, "Whoa, this is crazy." Then he paused, staring thoughtfully at a huge long spear. This spear looks pretty unique. Let me check the description. The Zong Nha spear, a weapon once wielded by an anonymous demon who hunted snakes. The vengeful spirits of the slain snakes reside within it. When a certain amount of mana is channeled into the spear, the shapes of two serpents appear. Arsene looked at the spear thoughtfully. The description sounded important, but its abilities didn't seem all that impressive. After all, he already had a dagger, so he didn't really need this. Next was another weapon. Moving on. The Starlight Crystal, a crystal orb soaked with starlight, once used by a skilled astrologer. By channeling a small amount of mana, you can borrow the light of the stars to illuminate your surroundings. Arsene turned away. It doesn't really fit with my darkness element. I could use it as a torch. But nah, I'll pass. Suddenly, something unusual caught his attention. Huh? Why is this one empty? I wonder what kind of item used to be here. He bent down and read the description of the item. The Great King's Crown of the Victor grants the wearer extraordinary healing and stamina. This artifact remains bound to its owner until their death. Arsene frowned, irritated. That's the one Baltan wore on his head, the greedy bastard. Arsene sighed, feeling a bit helpless. I removed binding artifacts from my novel. Yet here I find one. He glanced around. Looks like most of the good artifacts have already been taken. Only empty boxes remain. The serpent chain isn't here anymore. Every box was empty. The war banner of the demon general. The badge of the noble clown. Arsene clenched his fists and shouted. Aha! Nothing left at all. He stopped and thought. The 7 deadly sins took almost all the good stuff. What am I supposed to do now? Feeling resigned, he turned toward the lone sword beside him. Arsene looked at the solitary sword and thought. Most of the armor and weapons aren't very good. Seems like I have no other choice. But then, a sudden idea struck him. That's right. I can use that method. He quickly grabbed pen and paper. I need to save as much gold as possible. But now it's time to spend some. Arsene wrote on the paper. Tell me about the broken sword without a description in the armory. But you must pay a price for this information. Focusing intently, he continued writing. Payment must be a relic-level treasure or 100 gold coins. Remembering something, he turned again and said, Wait a minute, there's an old item in a box without a description. Tell me about the new tome next to it. You must pay a price for this information. At least 50 gold coins. Sweat beaded on Arsene's forehead as he suddenly understood. 50 gold, I get it now, since it tells me the cost. I just need to pick the most expensive item. He thought it over. There were 7 boxes in this row without descriptions. So he would ask about them one by one. A blue-eyed hawk without a description. Tell me about the black stone hawk. Payment. At least 1 gold coin. Arsene felt a deep wave of disappointment. If it's only 1 gold coin. The description says it trades the owner's luck for someone else's misfortune. Surprised, Arsene exclaimed, Whoa, this has to be it. Next items. Payment required. At least 100 gold. Or at least 50 gold. Arsene was breathing hard, holding the paper tightly. He hesitated as he approached the next box. Nothing particularly good left. Only 2 remain. He asked about a strange weapon again. This is an artifact, at least at the mythic level. Payment. At least 300 gold coins. Arsene's face lit up. Whoa, mythic level? Lucky me. He hurriedly thought. This is even better than the artifacts the others took. I'm going for this one. Suddenly, a strange feeling made him freeze. Arsene glanced toward the glowing box beside him, feeling drawn to it. What's this weird sensation? Feels like someone's watching me. Inside that box was an elaborate necklace. That necklace, right, there's one last item. As he wrote, he wondered silently if this was some kind of sixth sense. Tell me about this nameless necklace. Suddenly, something happened. The paper floated up and started glowing. Arsene was shocked. What? Why is the paper writing by itself? It revealed the message. You must sacrifice a god. The light flared even brighter. Arsene was stunned, wondering, is this a legendary item? Arsene was utterly stunned. I thought I was done for. But who would have guessed I'd run into something like this? Watching the paper float gently in the air, he carefully considered. Wait, it's way too early to celebrate. Which god should I sacrifice? I don't even have a minor deity right now, let alone a demon god. He focused his gaze on the necklace inside the box. What exactly is this necklace? Arsene tried to examine it more closely. Maybe I should try channeling some mana into it and see what happens. But there was no reaction. The necklace stayed exactly where it was. He looked at it with growing frustration. Damn it, this is so annoying. If only I knew what it could actually do. It just tells me to sacrifice a god and nothing else. Not ready to give up. Arsene continued writing on the paper. Maybe I should try a little trick. Tell me which god is connected to this nameless necklace in the basement. The paper still showed the same message. You must sacrifice a god. Arsene frowned, puzzled. No effect. He hugged the box regretfully. No matter how I phrase it, I'll probably get the same answer. Should I just give up? Without hesitation this time, he opened the box and confidently took the necklace. No, I'm sure about this. After putting it on, Arsene affirmed to himself. This thing's worth far more than any ordinary artifact. My instincts are telling me that. He glanced over the item's info to be certain. Let's see what we've got here. Race. Half demon. Attribute. Chaos. Talent. Position swap. 2 traits. Interest. Focus. Dark aura. Mana control. Patience. Mana. 1297. Status window. Just as I thought. Arsene pondered. No one else seems interested in this. I can take my time figuring it out. Instructor Ares looked surprised when he saw the item Arsene took. What's that necklace? Arsene, feeling a bit awkward, replied. It's one of those items without a description. Instructor Ares was taken aback. You picked an artifact without knowing its function or origin? So you must know something about it. Arsene just smiled at him. No, I honestly don't know anything. The instructor said nothing, just frowned sharply at Arsene. That made Arsene break out in a sweat. There he goes with that look again. Why does he hate me so much? Instructor Ares turned around and said, all right, I'll trust you. As an instructor of the academy, I have to trust my students. Then he addressed everyone. Now, take good care of the artifacts you've chosen. In dangerous times, they might even act as a second life. All the students responded in unison. Yes, sir. Arsene watched the students in front of him and thought, everyone here, except me, is someone destined to lead the demon realm in the future. They'll receive endless investments and support down the line. Arsene felt a pang of insecurity about himself. I wish I had even a fraction of that. Can I really survive here at the academy? The gate to the armory slowly disappeared as Instructor Ares said. All right, dismissed. We'll meet again at the opening ceremony. Arsene walked over to Renee. Shall we head back to the dorm? Miss Renee? She nodded. Yeah. Suddenly, a hand landed on his shoulder. And someone called out, leader of Group 33. It was the orange-haired guy. Ha ha. Sorry about that. First time meeting. Hope I wasn't too rude? Arsene turned around to look at Bolton. Bolton raised his hand eagerly toward him. Nice to meet you. I'm Bolton. The way you fight is really impressive. Arsene returned the greeting cheerfully. Nice to meet you too. Bolton. This is quite unexpected. Well, it's good that he approached me first at least. But his smile didn't last long. Arsene suddenly felt uneasy. Bolton's expression changed sharply as he gripped Arsene's hand tightly. Arsene gritted his teeth against the pain. What the hell is this jerk doing all of a sudden? It seemed Bolton was finally revealing his true nature. He didn't care about the weak, only interested in the strong. Driven by envy and greed, this guy was fiercely aggressive. He had once pushed the protagonist in the human realm to the brink of death. But after realizing the protagonist's potential, he spared him, saying they'd fight again later. In short, Bolton was a battle-crazed maniac. Pretending to ask Arsene, what's wrong? You look like you're struggling. Arsene forced a smile. Nothing. There are stronger people around me anyway. So why are you coming to me? Immediately, Arsene cast a spell, and Bolton's sword began to glow. Position swap. 2 targets were locked in. Suddenly, the sword disappeared, and Arsene was standing right behind Bolton. He said, cut it out, all right? The test's over. And everyone's tired. Arson felt his hand trembling. Damn, my hand. Bolton just laughed loudly. Ha ha ha. Didn't expect that. Turning with a fierce, provocative glare, he said, "You're strong. How about we fight right here and now? Until one of us dies." Arson panicked. He's crazy. Totally insane. I already told you. I don't want to fight. Renee shouted from the side, glaring fiercely at Bolton. Stop it, she challenged him. If you want to fight my bodyguard, you'll have to fight me too. The three of them began to clash. Bolton stopped and said, Ha ha, I love fighting, but taking on both of you is a bit much. I don't want to get hurt before the academy starts. But he didn't forget to turn back and flash a threatening smile at Arson. Well, there'll be plenty of chances. See you around. Arson watched him with a troubled look. He says he doesn't want to get hurt before the academy, but then wants to fight me to the death? What a lunatic. He studied Bolton carefully. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I really can't figure this guy out. Bolton raised his sword, looking puzzled. When did he draw his sword? Renee called. Let's go. Arson. Yes, Miss Renee. He turned to her and smiled. It feels like days have passed in just one day. I'm starting to look forward to life at the academy. The next morning, Arson woke up full of excitement. He stood by the window, sighing to himself. Maybe it's because of all the hard work yesterday, but today I feel unusually refreshed. He stood in front of the mirror, studying himself carefully. My body feels way better, definitely getting stronger. Happily, he picked up the uniform shirt. All right, let's try on the academy uniform they sent. They know where we are and sent it directly here. That's pretty thoughtful of them. Arson put on the uniform neatly. Oh, it's more comfortable than I expected. He looked himself over again. They said for the next 3 years we can't wear anything but the uniform. But at least this one's practical. Then suddenly, he thought of Renee. I already gave Renee her uniform. I wonder how she looks in it. Should I go check? Arson knocked on her door. A voice from inside called. Who is it? Miss Renee. I wanted to ask if you need anything before heading out. The door cracked open. Come in. Renee, dressed in her uniform, stood shyly in the sunlight. Arson was genuinely amazed. He complimented her. You look really beautiful. She blushed deeply, clearly embarrassed. Renee awkwardly cleared her throat. Where are you planning to go? Arson noticed even her ears had turned red. He thought to himself, embarrassed? I didn't expect she could look so cute like this. He smiled and said, since it's a rare day off, I thought I'd take a walk around the city. He bowed politely. You should also take some time to rest. Miss Renee, I'll be going now. Just as he turned to leave, Renee called out. Wait, she was shy, avoiding his gaze. You have something you need to do, right? Arson wondered. Excuse me, something I need to do? Renee blushed and looked at him. He turned back to her, thinking, wait, did I forget something? Suddenly it hit him, protecting her. Feeling a bit embarrassed, he said, oh, right, I need to protect you. I completely forgot about that after getting too excited about having some time off alone. Renee turned around and said, I'll go with you. Let me change first. Just a moment. Still blushing, she added, how long do you plan on staring like that? Arson suddenly understood. Oh, of course. I'll wait outside. He stood by her door, silently mourning the loss of his day off. The city was crowded and bustling. People were busy trading and selling all around. The city was lively and clean. Hard to believe a war had taken place here just 10 years ago. Arson looked around thoughtfully. While rebuilding is still underway in the outskirts of the capital, it seems humanity won the war but never fully claimed the city. Renee tugged his sleeve and called. Arson. She pointed toward a street food stall. Let's eat over there. Arson looked at her. You mean street food? Yeah. Golden skewers sizzled over the charcoal fire. Arson approached and asked the vendor. Oh, what kind of skewers are these? The vendor replied. They're seasoned venison and vegetable skewers. Arson thought quietly to himself. Renee stood beside him, eager. I wonder if it tastes like chicken skewers? Arson told the vendor. 2 skewers, please. Thank you. She took a skewer and bit into it. They both carefully savored the food. This is good. You like it? Really good. He studied her closely, thinking, who would have guessed quiet Renee could show such an expression? Maybe she's starting to open up a bit. The two of them walked past a fountain in the city, chatting away happily. Arson felt completely relaxed. It's been so long since I've had a real break. This might be the last time I get such a carefree moment. Then they stopped in front of a statue. Arsène looked up at it. A giant statue in the middle of the city? Who is she? He pointed and asked Renée. Who is this statue of? Renée replied. You really don't know? That's the first Demon King. Arsène looked at the statue in awe. Oh, the first Demon King? Now that I think about it, she does kind of look like Diane. He thought. There probably won't be many chances to see the first Demon King up close. Hey, come closer and take a better look. Suddenly, the statue's eyes glowed, and the necklace on Arsène's neck lit up too. Shocked, Arsène grabbed the necklace. Whoa, what's going on? The necklace is glowing? A beam of light flowed from the statue to the necklace. Arsène held it tightly, stunned. Suddenly, something strange happened. A gem on the necklace turned gray. What the hell is going on? Renée called out. What are you doing, Arsène? Why did you suddenly pull out the artifact and stare at it like that? Still shocked, Arsène kept staring at the statue, full of questions. Did I see that wrong? No, I definitely saw light coming from the statue. And the color of the necklace changed. He glanced at Renée, who looked totally clueless. Seems like I'm the only one who saw it. The statue returned to normal. Even Arsène had only received vague answers before, like, sacrifice a god. But now, he had just uncovered something important in the most unexpected place. Arsène realized that the necklace must be connected to the first Demon King. If I investigate everything related to it, I'll probably uncover some clues. Renée called out. You're just standing there. Let's head back. All right, Miss Renée, he replied, but his mind kept racing. I'm really curious about the true nature of this necklace now. The next morning at the academy, after their days off, both of them arrived. Arsène gently called out to Renée. Come on, the enrollment ceremony is about to start. Yeah, in the grand hall, the principal stood on the podium to welcome the new students. The principal and the professors were already seated inside the auditorium where the ceremony was held. About 100 freshmen had gathered. Arsène thought to himself, it's just a typical enrollment ceremony. Two new students whispered to each other. I can't believe that kid is actually the principal of our school. That kid is a monster. Just by showing up, she already dominated us. Someone praised the principal. Still, she's kind of cute. Arsène smiled to himself. Cute my foot. He looked at her and thought. She's covered in tattoos and has the body of a kid. You call that cute? What's with those eyes? Suddenly, the principal's gaze locked down onto the crowd with a piercing intensity, making the students around jump in surprise and fear. The principal's presence was fierce and intimidating. Arsène thought, I mean, she's really adorable. Wait, can she even read minds? Professor Aries stood sternly and shouted, everyone, quiet. The enrollment ceremony will now begin. With Aries' command, the ceremony officially started. Renée and Arsène stood side by side in their uniforms. Just as the principal's somewhat standard speech was ending and the atmosphere began to calm down, she added, you all must abide by the academy's rules. The professor continued, and that concludes the principal's speech. Now, we will begin the oath-taking ceremony for the valedictorian and runner-up. Two standout students were invited up to the stage. Valedictorian, runner-up, please come forward. Arsène observed quietly. Just as expected, those two earned those positions. Renée didn't seem fazed at all. He thought to himself, the only reason she's here is to avenge her mother. Maybe she doesn't care about the competition. As for me, no matter what anyone says, I have to fully focus on what I need to do. Suddenly, Arsène felt a finger pointed directly at him. It was Bolton. That guy was still targeting him. That scary pest again. What's his deal? Arsène sighed, trying to calm himself. No, don't react. Ignore him. Stay calm. Don't get dragged into his game. A step forward. A girl moved up. Valedictorian, please step forward. A beautiful figure walked confidently, cold and composed. All the male students were impressed, including Arsène. She really is the one said to be blessed by the gods, the Demon King's daughter. Diane. Now she had even claimed the top spot as valedictorian. Who could possibly stand in her way? The two top students stood before the principal and took their oath. I solemnly swear. We, those admitted to the academy. The students spoke in unison, their voices filling the hall. Everyone fell silent and listened closely. We'll erase the shame and vow to rebuild the demon realm. As her oath echoed through the auditorium, the atmosphere shifted. Arson touched the dark mark on his neck and thought, "You can feel the rage from those who lost their homes and families at the hands of humans. If anyone found out he carried that bloodline." Just the thought was terrifying. A horrific vision flashed before him, himself being tortured brutally. In the worst case, I could be tortured forever. The ceremony ended. The Academy's enrollment ceremony is now concluded. Professor Aries announced sternly, "Students, please check the notice board at the back for your assigned classes." After confirming, "Head to your designated classrooms." Arson turned with a smile. "Let's go, Miss Renee." "Yeah." The students gathered around the notice board to see their placements. Arson looked closely, searching. "All right, I'm in Class A. What about Renee?" His eyes welled up. "What a shame." He turned and told her, "You're in Class C, Miss Renee. Honestly, I don't want us to be separated." Renee scowled. "Stop smiling like that." She snapped angrily and turned away. "You're still my bodyguard, so you'd better stick around until I call for you." "Of course, Miss Renee." Arson began to relax. "Great, looks like I can finally chill out a bit." Suddenly, as he brushed past another student, that guy's eyes locked on him. Filled with anger, he clenched his teeth and snarled, "You wanna die, you Cerberus-looking bastard?" Arson was taken aback. Wait a minute. Then he recognized the person in front of him. The greedy family. Vera's son, Samuel. If I remember right, he's pretty strong among the 7 deadly sins. He ran into me and still tried to cause trouble. How ridiculous. But I should definitely avoid him on a day like today. Brushing off his hands, Arson smiled lightly as if nothing happened and replied, "Ah, I wasn't paying attention. Sorry about that." Samuel, clearly annoyed, barked, "Get lost. You're lucky today's the first day of enrollment." "Ha, how can the children of the 7 deadly sins be like this?" Arson thought. He hoped Samuel wouldn't be in his class. There's no way Bolton is in Class A too, right? Suddenly, a loud thud echoed as someone slammed a table. "Don't you believe me? That's not the point." Idea couldn't hold back and shouted, "I'm an official instructor of the Academy now." Aries calmly said, "But that kid is too dangerous. I speak from experience. It's better if I handle him." Idea didn't accept Aries' suggestion. "They're my students, assigned to me, the instructor of Class A. You can't just override me like that." The principal interrupted their argument. "Enough. Sit down." Idea sat down with a huff. "This is ridiculous. Why is it always me?" The principal turned to Aries, asking, "Instructor Aries, why do you want to change the class you're in charge of?" "I plan to deal with that student myself. I faced countless enemies like him on the battlefield." Aries said knowingly, "That kid was born a killer. He could turn his sword on his allies at any moment. So we need to keep him under control right now." Another instructor spoke up, "Isn't that just you being overly cautious about a half-demon? Honestly, he's also much weaker compared to the children of the 7 deadly sins." "No," Aries replied firmly, "power isn't just about strength. His daring to try bold moves and his calmness rivaled those of the 7 deadly sins." The two instructors exchanged looks but said nothing. "That's why I want to be in charge of Class A. Arson needs to be handled carefully," Aries emphasized. Idea then asked loudly, "Wait, so you're basically saying you don't trust me?" The principal sighed at their endless bickering. "I apologize if I've made you uncomfortable. When will you stop treating me like a child?" "Enough." The principal's aura turned fierce, and the whole room fell silent. "I understand your concerns, Instructor Aries, but the classes have already been assigned. Changing them now would do more harm than good." Aries didn't argue anymore. "Understood, but a little caution never hurts." The principal advised Idea, "Instructor, pay special attention to that kid." "Got it." Idea perked up. "Now, can we finally end this meeting? Instructors, please head to your classes and welcome your students." In Class 1A, Arson was feeling frustrated. "Why do I have such bad luck?" Fran walked over to Arson's desk. "Heh, looks like it's a relief it's not Diane, right? And not Bolton either." Fran asked curiously, "Did you really follow me all the way here?" Arson explained, "The class assignments are random." Fran laughed heartily. "Oh ho ho, that's great. I hereby grant you the privilege of being my slave here." "Here we go again." Samuel spoke up. "Hey, you two, if you don't shut up, I'll kill you both." Fran's blood boiled. "Ah, what did you say, you brat from the infamous family?" Samuel fired back. What, brat? I'll kill you. Arson tried to calm himself. I can get along with them, right? Suddenly, the classroom door swung open. Everyone fell silent and turned to look. The instructor stepped in. You all are noisy. You're not planning to fight on the first day, are you? Clapping hands enthusiastically, the instructor introduced herself. Welcome, everyone. I'm the teacher in charge of class. Remember my name. To introduce myself, I'm your senior, known as the Disaster Legion. Disaster Legion? Arson was curious about the name. The class started whispering. Isn't the Disaster Legion the one who single-handedly killed 10,000 people at the Pollux River? Wasn't it 30,000? Arson smiled to himself, amused. Having such a powerful teacher might just increase my chances of survival. My introduction ends here. Now, I'll quickly go over how the classes will proceed. Idea took chalk and wrote on the board, hunting methods. I'll be teaching you this. We won't be hunting animals or demon beasts. Samuel clenched his teeth. A bold student raised a hand. So, what will we be hunting? We'll be hunting one of the reasons you're here, humans. Humans. So this is where it really starts. The classroom buzzed with excitement. Idea continued. Oh, I only teach hunting methods. Magic and weapons will be taught by other instructors. Fran whispered. She's quite pretty for a teacher. Idea added. Besides that, I'll be responsible for basic physical training. Arson paused, thinking, that's my weak point. Now, let's start the first lesson. Everyone, gather at the training ground. At the training ground, someone exclaimed, wow, this place is huge. Maybe 4 or 5 times bigger than a normal field. Everyone wondered whether the training would involve weapons or magic. A voice rang out. All right, is everyone here? Idea began. Use your magic. Focus. And don't take your eyes off this. A black hole was slowly expanding. Suddenly, a squad of soldiers stepped out from the rift. The scene just now had everyone there terrified. The soldiers, armed and ready, stood behind Idea, waiting for orders. Heh, they're not real people. Idea chuckled softly and explained. They're just illusions I created using magic. Oh, I made the holy sword during the entrance exam. Arson was fascinated as he touched the face of one soldier. A replica with only about 1/10 the power of the holy sword. She's a monster, he thought to himself. This academy is pretty intimidating. But the Royal Academy is far beyond that. Really makes me. The mission is simple. Get past those people and reach me. So, who do we start with? Idea's voice drew attention. Hey you, what's your name again? Idea suddenly said in a haunting tone. Why don't you try stabbing me in the neck? Just like you did with the holy sword. After Instructor Ares. Now I'm under the spotlight of another instructor. Arson felt a bit nervous and asked. I'm not supposed to fight you directly, right? Instructor Idea hinted at the key point. Among those soldiers, there's a leader, the source of their morale and guidance. When the leader falls, the rest collapse like dominoes. And if the leader is strong, so are they. I'll play the role of that leader. Confident, Arson drew his sword. Got it. Sun Tzu's Art of War. To defeat an army, first capture the general. Taking down the leader in the middle of the troops, that's easy. Arson smirked, laughing. Of course, I won't be able to defeat you. So, if I manage to touch your hand or weapon, that counts as a win, right? Begin. At the signal, the soldiers started attacking. Swap position. In just 1 second, Arson was behind Idea, sword pressed against her neck. Surprised by my speed. Instructor? Did I make it? Arson's breath warmed the back of Idea's neck. A few dozen meters separated me from the instructor before. But now that distance means nothing. At first, I could only move a few meters. This is a huge breakthrough. Now I can easily destroy an enemy base. Arson felt proud of his progress. Suddenly, Idea chuckled. Now I see why they told me to watch out for you. She pushed the sword away with her hand. You pass. Go back to your spot. Yes. Understood. Whether it was hostility or curiosity, I don't know what part of me stirred them so much. They haven't figured out who I really am, right? Arson sheathed his sword, still deep in thought. Idea said, now you've all seen what the students can do, right? Those who fail will have extra classes. Her words made everyone in the class even more fearful. Damn humans. Another member stepped up to fight. They're good at the basics. As expected from the demon tribe, they're just ordinary people with no real power. so it's understandable, but they only managed to take down a few, with the instructor controlling them directly. Arsene watched closely, analyzing. The soldiers started switching weapons, aiming at the students. Ouch, that must hurt. One student leapt forward, shouting, "I'll jump over all of you." Everyone looked up, surprised. Oh, the soldiers switched to bows and arrows and started shooting directly. The student screamed and fell, leaving everyone helpless. Swap position is insanely powerful. With this move, I can aim for the top of the class. Arsene was confident, sure he'd secure first place. Next student, Samuel stepped up, coldly yelling, "Move aside." Samuel's up? Let's see if his arrogant attitude matches his skill. Arsene was also waiting for Samuel's performance. I'll start now. Samuel emitted a blue light around him. Arsene watched intently. Samuel began to gather magic and then released it, his power affecting the entire training ground and even impacting Arsene. He wiped them all out in an instant. Is this magic? Samuel's unique power of greed, a strange skill that devours everything. For now, I'll let him have the top spot. Suddenly, an irritating voice rang out. Ah, what's going on in this class? Idea raised her hand and flicked her fingers lightly, instantly dispelling Samuel's magic. It's understandable. Really, no way an instructor should be defeated by a student. Idea said, "You blew everything away except me," which was actually impressive enough to shock me for a second. But unfortunately, you failed. Idea's words stunned Samuel for a moment. Then, with a snap of her fingers, a group of soldiers appeared. She explained, "If you don't kill the leader, humans will always find someone to replace them and fill the ranks. No matter how many you kill, it'll just be like this." The soldiers swarmed in quickly, at least 200 of them. Idea didn't forget to praise Samuel. "But your magic is quite strong for a first-year student." Arsene noticed Samuel's hands trembling as he was forced out. Idea called out, "Next student." Samuel clenched his fists in frustration and trudged back to his spot. Clearly unhappy, but he accepted the result reasonably well. As Arsene stepped past Samuel, he couldn't help but glance at him. Arsene's confident face only made Samuel more furious. "Samuel, your overconfidence in your own abilities is why you failed. If you had focused on the goal like I do, you'd have passed without any trouble." Fran laughed loudly. "Ha ha ha. I've been waiting for a long time, finally. It's my turn. Fran of the 7 deadly sins. Oh, I wonder how she'll do." The other students began whispering about her. Fran pointed directly at the soldiers. "You pathetic minions, how dare you block my way? Ho ho ho." She kept laughing nervously. Why isn't she moving? What's going on? Everyone was confused about what Fran was doing. Fran's face had turned a sickly shade of purple and green. What should I do now? Just as expected from Fran, the daughter of lust, she didn't fight directly but controlled her minions like a queen bee. Basically, without her minions, she was powerless. Fran stood there, scared and frozen. I had to do something. Suddenly, she seemed to come up with an idea. Fran turned to Arsene with a pleading look. "Help me, my slave?" Huh? Arsene was taken aback by Fran's sudden action. He was confused. Slave? Around him, whispers started spreading. Did she just call him a slave? He looked at her, his mind racing over her crazy words. What is she thinking? Saying something like that out loud? Fran turned toward him and shouted, "Hurry up and help me." Idea, with a serious expression, ordered 2 subordinates to approach. Seeing this, Fran panicked, stepping back and screaming loudly. Seeing the scene, Arsene suddenly realized she didn't have any defensive abilities. Wait, can she not enhance herself? But the thought disappeared in an instant. No, that can't be. Maybe there's some special reason. Meanwhile, Fran was struggling against the female instructor, helplessly calling his name. "Save me." Another unusual energy caught Arsene's attention. He turned to see a girl healing the wounds of a young man. The boy said, "Thanks a lot." The girl replied, "It's nothing. I'm glad you're not seriously hurt." Arsene was surprised by this unfamiliar power. Healing magic. But that's a power only humans can use. That means this kid must be a half-demon. Didn't expect to have such a rare healing talent in the same class. He couldn't remember her name, but he knew he needed to find a way to connect with her. Should I try to approach her now? Idea's voice called out, "Student, Fran asked you to help her earlier. Now that the test is over, It's good that you're helping her get up. Arson immediately replied. Oh, got it. I'm coming right away. Actually, in his head he was silently scolding her for ruining a good opportunity. She really picked the worst timing. He looked at Fran's disheveled figure and teased. You useless Fran. She immediately screamed. Ouch. Arson tore off her fake disguise. Please stand up. It's over now. Fran quickly sat up, tears streaming down her face. Her body covered in wounds. Crying, she sobbed. You saw everything, didn't you? He pretended not to understand, innocently asking, what are you talking about? Fran got angry and yelled. Stop pretending, you slave. Arson immediately shot back. Well, I think you look weaker than any slave. Fran was furious, wishing she could tear him apart into 100 pieces. Are you mocking me? Idea called everyone. All right, clean up and gather around. She had some expectations, but the results were as predicted. Anyway, you all did well on your first lesson. Experiencing something like this is important to understand your own place and the mistakes you've made. Samuel gritted his teeth, frowning with anger. Idea continued. And your limits. Knowing these things helps you support each other and coordinate perfectly in battle. As Arson listened to her explanation, he thought, at the human royal school, students are sorted by ability. But here, at the academy, class assignments are random, so teamwork is key. The teacher's point is probably to emphasize that. Suddenly, Idea spoke loudly, her voice clear and distinct. As for the only student who passed, that would be. Arson proudly responded. Yes. Idea's eyes were deep and unreadable, filled with anticipation as she said, I look forward to your progress. Without hesitation, he replied, thank you, ma'am, I'll do my best to learn everything. Around him, there were burning gazes full of jealousy and envy. When the meeting ended, Idea turned and walked away, ordering, return to your classroom for the next lesson. Arson looked at her, hesitant thoughts swirling. She was praising me, right? Behind him, Samuel was filled with murderous intent, thinking, why does her tone sound hostile? She's always looking for a chance to pick a fight, trying to make me her slave. Can I build my own faction here? The clock struck 10. After Idea's class, the rest of the lessons proceeded as scheduled. A teacher in neat military uniform stood at the front and spoke loudly. Nice to meet you all. I am your theory education instructor. In this theory class, we will study the history of the demon world and human weaknesses. Arson pondered quietly. If you get hit there, does it hurt demons just like humans? The teacher raised his voice, announcing to the class, next, we will have a test on today's material. If you don't want to have to retake the class, memorize everything well. Arson closed his book, exhausted, and laid his head on the desk. Seriously? Just like back in school. First day and I'm already fed up. He looked at everyone chatting happily around him, feeling bored. Everyone was laughing and enjoying themselves, only he felt isolated and lonely. Silently, tears fell. Still no friends, just like before. Suddenly, he spotted the girl with the healing ability. Like finding new hope, his spirits lifted. Oh, that's right, there's that girl. Arson moved toward her, thinking, maybe this time I should talk to her. He greeted, nice to meet you. I'm Arson. People around glanced his way, as if sensing his gaze, making him nervous. Wait, why is everyone looking over here? The girl seemed uninterested, replying absent-mindedly. Yeah, nice to meet you too. Arson looked at her and thought, whenever two half-demons do anything, they definitely attract attention. She looks uncomfortable. I should save the rest of the conversation for later. Realizing he wasn't being respected, he said goodbye. I'll talk to you another time then. She looked confused but answered, okay, bye. As he walked away, his mind tried to console him. Maybe I should go to the bathroom to recharge my lonely mana or something. Just as he reached the door, it was flung wide open by Samuel. Arson could only blame his bad luck. Perfect timing to be terrible luck. Samuel saw him and his voice grew even more furious. You again? Arson had no intention of causing trouble and calmly explained. I was just about to leave too. You go ahead first, I'll follow after you. But the wind didn't calm, and Samuel passed by him, hurling insults. You disgusting low-life creature. Arson couldn't let such an insult slide and shot back. Your family must be really wonderful. Just a simple question. But it made Samuel furious. He turned around, unleashed his power, and growled. "What did you say?" Arson was not afraid of his anger and continued. "I mean, to give birth to trash like you that can walk and talk?" His mouth kept spewing harsh curses. "Filthy, petty scum." Samuel gritted his teeth, wanting to rip him apart alive. His roar sounded like it came from hell itself. "I'll tear you to pieces." A deadly look flashed in Arson's eyes as a cruel plan formed in his mind. Unlike Bolton, this guy only shows pure hatred and hostility. If he tries to block my plans, better to eliminate him now. Power surged on both sides, like they were ready to fight to the death. Seeing Samuel's sharp, thorn-covered hand, a wild thought flashed through Arson's mind. If I use magic, no one would care if I blew off one of his arms. Suddenly, a teacher appeared and shouted, "Stop right now. Class is about to start. Both of you get back to your seats." It was like a bucket of cold water, extinguishing the fierce fighting spirit of both. Arson and Samuel were both surprised by the teacher's arrival. When did he get here? Arson and Samuel simultaneously withdrew the intense aura that had engulfed them, signaling that their confrontation was temporarily put on hold. Even so, Arson could still feel the tension hanging thick in the air. He knew Samuel wasn't going to let this go anytime soon, not yet. The newly arrived faculty member was introduced as the magic instructor, Robold. Arson immediately took note of his sudden appearance and calm, composed demeanor. It made him a little wary. Still, he reminded himself that anyone entrusted with teaching at Sidon Academy had to be a master of their field. If that was the case, then learning magic from someone like Robold was an opportunity not to be taken lightly. In this world, magic wasn't some innate gift, it was more like a skill that could be trained, even studied like an academic discipline. Robold emphasized that to master magic effectively, the first and most important step was understanding elemental affinities. He began explaining the 4 basic natural elements, earth, water, wind, and fire, which form the foundation of all magical arts. When light and darkness were added to the mix, the total came to 6 fundamental elements that made up the current magic system. Robold went on to say that most people only possessed a single elemental affinity. But Arson couldn't help wondering, could his mixed heritage make him an exception? He started reflecting on the 2 bloodlines coursing through his veins. On his father's side, the Bear clan, his family was well known in magical circles for their mastery of dark magic. But when it came to his mother's side, the Arson family, he knew almost nothing. It had never been clearly explained. After the introduction, Robold announced that today's lesson would focus on identifying each student's mana affinity. He instructed the students to step up one by one and place their hand on a special orb that could change color according to the elemental nature of their mana. The students lined up, advancing in turn. Arson, however, chose to stay back, preferring to observe before taking his turn. One by one, the students placed their hands on the orb, which immediately shifted color. Robold loudly announced each result: fire, red; wind, green; earth, brown, and so on. The process was swift and smooth, without any issues. As Arson watched, he noticed how quickly each student's affinity was determined. But just as he was about to step forward, Robold suddenly called his name, catching him off guard. How did he know who Arson was? Surprised and slightly on edge, Arson slowly stepped forward and placed his hand on the orb. Immediately, a strange color appeared, half black, half gray. The entire class fell silent. Robold's expression shifted in an instant. His face stunned as he stared at the orb as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He explained that black typically represented the element of darkness, commonly associated with high-ranking demonic beings. But gray was something entirely different, extremely rare, almost unheard of. Arson tilted his head and asked, "You don't know what that color means?" Robold shook his head. "No, I do. It's just surprising. Because of how rare it is, extremely rare." He went on to explain. Gray was the symbol of chaos, an elemental attribute that didn't follow any natural laws and could even disrupt the very foundational principles of the world. Arson stood still, his mind reeling. The word chaos echoed through his thoughts. It was something he had never considered when constructing the world of the original novel. This world he had created from a meta perspective as someone who had regressed. And now, He was the one carrying an attribute that had never existed in his original manuscript. Magic that defied natural order. That phrase might just be the key to unlocking the mystery behind his unique abilities. Still, for now, Arsene decided to focus on the dark attribute, something he was certain he could control first. A little while later, as he mulled over everything he'd just learned, Arsene suddenly felt a gaze on him from behind. He turned sharply, startled. It was the girl from earlier. She stood quietly behind him, clearly having used a stealth technique, but he had still detected her. Her expression showed a flicker of surprise, as if she hadn't expected Arsene to notice her presence. But in the blink of an eye, her eyes turned sharp and cold with irritation. She locked eyes with him and said through gritted teeth, "Hey, what the hell were you just thinking about?" The sudden question, sharp as a blade, caught Arsene off guard. He feigned innocence. "What do you mean?" But it was clear she wasn't buying the act. Her gaze remained just as piercing and distrustful as before. The girl immediately accused Arsene of provoking Samuel on purpose. In response, Arsene defended himself, saying he simply couldn't stand being bullied. Hearing that, she scoffed with thinly veiled contempt, her eyes narrowing like sharpened knives. Then, coldly, she pointed out that the person he had just messed with wasn't some random nobody. He belonged to one of the 7 great houses of sin. Arsene immediately pushed back, saying that outsiders weren't even allowed to interfere within the Sidon Academy. So there was nothing worth worrying about. He intended to leave the conversation at that. But the girl only seemed to grow more irritated. With a sigh, she spoke in a tone like she was talking to a clueless child. "It's obvious you have no idea what's really going on." She began to say something along the lines of, "That kid's family is actually," but then cut herself off, leaving the sentence hanging in the air. Without another word, she turned and walked away, tossing back a single remark. "Anyway, you should at least be careful from now on." Arsene stood still, watching her disappear down the corridor, his mind spinning with a whirlwind of questions. What had she meant to say? Was she hinting that Samuel's family was known for ruthless revenge? No, her voice didn't carry the tone of a simple threat. There was something more dangerous in it, something deeper, far more complex than a personal grudge. Even so, Arsene shook off the thought. The final class of the day was about to begin, and he needed to focus. Moments later, the swordsmanship instructor entered the classroom wearing a scowl, as if the entire world owed him something. Without a greeting, he launched straight into berating the class. "With skills like yours, none of you even deserve to be here." His words were sharp and unrelenting. He went on to say that in the previous training session, even when the groups were only up against practice dummies operating at 10% power and later just 5%, all but the top 8 teams had been completely wiped out. His harsh criticism cut straight through the students' pride, probably by design. Arsene couldn't help but wonder, is he doing this just to provoke me? But the instructor didn't let up. Coldly, he declared, "Starting today, I'll teach you how to wield a sword, so that when you die, at least you can take an enemy's arm with you to the grave." The lesson began with a brutal endurance test. The entire class was ordered to run laps around the training yard. It was pure physical torment. The instructor explained that the foundation of swordsmanship was stamina. No matter how refined your technique was, if it was backed by endurance, its power could double or even triple. The training quickly became grueling. Before long, students were gasping for breath, their legs burning with each never-ending lap. A few began to complain. "How long are we supposed to keep running? Wait, this is the 20th lap?" Groans echoed throughout the training yard. Some students tried to secretly channel mana to cheat, but their tricks didn't escape the sharp eyes of the strict instructor. He bellowed at them, made them drop down for push-ups on the spot, then coldly barked out, "Start over, all of you." No one dared argue. And just like that, the nightmare began all over again. Arsene smirked quietly to himself, inwardly scoffing, rich kids always looking for shortcuts. His mind drifted back to his past, back when he had first transmigrated into this body and fled to the demon world. Back then, he'd stirred up chaos in ways far more creative than cheap tricks like this. Finally, the instructor's voice rang out, announcing the final lap, the 50th. After everyone completed it, he declared that only those who had run all 50 laps were allowed to return to the dormitory and rest. Those who failed were forced to stay behind for remedial training. Arsene let out a sigh of relief. Today had been no joke, psychologically taxing and physically draining to the limit. His entire body felt like it had been dismantled and reassembled. All he wanted now was to collapse into bed and sleep until morning. But just as he was heading back toward the dorms, Arsene suddenly froze. His whole body tensed as someone grabbed his shoulder from behind. He spun around in an instant, heart pounding, ready to react at the slightest sign of danger. But when he saw who it was, his eyes widened in disbelief. Her, what is she doing here? He thought, unable to hide his confusion. Spinning around in alarm, Arsene found himself face to face with Lady Renee, and he couldn't help but wonder. What is she doing here at this hour? With her auburn hair catching the light and a gentle smile on her lips. Arsene managed a polite smile of his own and greeted her first. Heading back to the dorms? First day of class, how'd it go for you? But Renee didn't respond. Her silence made Arsene uneasy. Did someone in class upset her? The scene earlier was a little tense, easy to misinterpret. Finally, Renee broke the silence with a cool remark. You're still lacking in training. Then, unexpectedly, she added, light exercise will help loosen up your muscles. Train with me? Arsene was caught completely off guard by the invitation. But Renee's expression had a hint of eagerness as she followed up. You'll help me, right? You will, won't you? Arsene remained silent for a moment. His expression unreadable, somewhere between reluctance and resignation. He let out a soft sigh and thought to himself. This girl, she really doesn't know the meaning of rest. Does she? Spotting a training zone nearby reserved for students, Renee pointed toward it. Come on, we still have time. Arsene gave a slight nod. Training with a descendant of one of the 7 sins. It's exhausting, sure, but definitely worth it. They made their way into a spacious building. Arsene glanced around and remarked. This place is huge. Inside, the training facility was fully equipped, with students diligently working out at various stations. Arsene nodded in approval. With gear like this, stamina's bound to improve fast. His eyes landed on a large barbell stacked with heavy plates. He gestured toward it and asked, how about we start with this one? He volunteered to go first, eyeing the substantial weight, with a mix of confidence and pride. He reassured Renee, I've been training for years. This is nothing. With that, Arsene stepped forward, lowered himself into position, and prepared to lift the barbell. Veins bulged along his neck. His facial muscles tensed, and he summoned every ounce of strength he had. A strained groan escaped his throat. GHH. Lady Renee stood beside him, arms crossed, watching with an icy expression. Finally, she spoke, blunt and emotionless. Too weak. Don't force it, you'll tear something. Arsene clenched his teeth in silence, cursing internally. Damn this body. After all those years of confinement, his current physique simply couldn't handle this kind of pressure. Collapsing to his knees, he gasped for air as sweat dripped onto the floor. Unfazed by his struggle, Renee stepped forward without a word, bent down, grabbed the bar, and casually asked, "This one?" Then, with a light push of her legs, she hoisted the barbell cleanly above her head, effortless. Arsene stared in disbelief, jaw slightly open. What the hell? That kind of strength is just on another level. He realized that even if he went all out with raw physical power, he still might not come close to matching her. He'd have to start training seriously. A determined smile slowly formed on his face. 2 grueling hours passed beneath the harsh orange sky of late afternoon. Eventually, Arsene walked over to Renee, who was still steadily lifting weights. It's getting late, we should probably wrap this up. With a heavy thud, she dropped the barbell onto the ground. Without protest, she simply nodded. Yeah, Arsene offered gently. I'll walk you to the dorm gate. She didn't say no, just quietly walked beside him. As they strolled, Arsene glanced at her in silence, his mind turning. She's definitely been pushing herself hard lately. Curious about Renee's current state, Arsene took advantage of a brief moment when she ducked into a side hallway to change. He quickly activated a special skill. A faint, blue glowing interface materialized in front of his hand, revealing Renee's status information. Display data. Race: half demon. Alignment: chaos. Talent: level 2 displacement. Traits: curious, easily absorbed, high bloodlust, Dark affinity. Mana control. Arrogant gaze. Arsene stared at the status screen. A rush of complex emotions stirring inside him, part surprise, part intrigue. A girl like her, clearly not someone to be underestimated. Renee's mana stats were displayed clearly, from 1297 to 1321. Arsene noted that while the other attributes remained largely unchanged, her mana had increased by exactly 24 points. He frowned slightly, silently acknowledging that even with her nightly training in mana control, the growth rate was painfully slow. This really is the slowest stage of development. He sighed inwardly. For a moment, Arsene considered looking into mana-enhancing potions or other resources to help speed up her training. But before he could entertain the idea any further, Renee's voice called out from behind. "I'm done changing." Arsene turned, slightly startled by her quick return. Renee frowned at him. "What were you doing?" He quickly collected himself, flashing a casual smile. "Ah, nothing important. Shall we go?" After their workout, Arsene walked her to the gate of the female dormitory. He gave her a small nod as they parted. "Get some rest." Renee returned the gesture with a quiet nod of her own. "You too. Good night." Then she disappeared inside. Arsene stood there for a moment, watching her go, before exhaling deeply. His body felt like it was about to fall apart from exhaustion. The day had pushed him to his limits, mentally and physically. He decided to head back to Bali dorm to rest. Climbing the grand staircase of the luxurious building, Arsene recalled the instructions he'd been given: up the stairs, then turn right. He pulled out the admission letter to double-check his room assignment. "Room 407, he muttered, scanning the fourth-floor hallway until he found it. Standing in front of the door, he wondered, "I wonder who my roommate is." A part of him hoped it would be someone skilled, easy to get along with, maybe even someone he could bring over to his side. This could very well be the first male friend he'd make in the demon realm, and the thought sparked a faint sense of anticipation in Arsene's chest. Taking a deep breath, Arsene pushed the door open and stepped inside, flashing a friendly smile. "Hey there, nice to meet." His voice caught mid-sentence, and the smile froze on his lips the moment his eyes landed on the person lounging casually on the bed, Samuel. Sucking on a lollipop with utter nonchalance. Samuel looked up, his face registering surprise, which instantly shifted into open disgust. His narrow green eyes sharpened with hostility. Both of them shouted at the same time, like they'd just seen a ghost. "What the hell? Why are you here?" Arsene nearly collapsed against the doorframe, one hand on his forehead as he tapped it with growing exasperation. "Unbelievable. Out of hundreds of students, I get stuck with him?" Samuel, no less horrified, bit down hard on his lollipop, the candy shattering between his teeth in a burst of frustration. He clearly wasn't thrilled about this arrangement either. The two stared each other down, the tension between them thick enough to choke on, like the smallest spark would ignite a full-on brawl. From the bed, Samuel curled his lip in contempt and spat out a venom-laced insult. "Filthy half-breed. TCH. Still standing by the door, Arsene clenched his jaw, torn between logic and the urge to blast the guy through the wall. He took a deep breath, forcing the fury down, and exhaled slowly before walking toward the desk to set his things down. But Samuel suddenly jumped to his feet, fists clenched, yelling, "You wanna fight? Right here, right now?" Arsene scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Seriously? You're insane. You want to throw down inside the dorm room?" Then, without waiting for a reply, he turned away calmly. "Relax, I'm just heading out for a bit." Samuel didn't answer, just glared daggers at him from across the room. As Arsene reached for the doorknob, he tossed out a final, deadpan remark, "Sleep tight." And with that, he stepped out, the door clicking shut behind him with a dry, definitive snap. Inside the dorm room, Samuel ground his teeth and muttered under his breath, "Damn unlucky bastard. TCH. Out in the schoolyard, Arsene let out another sigh. He had been hoping for a quiet break, a bit of peace, but instead, he was stuck rooming with that guy. So much for resting easy. He decided to walk around for a while and wait until Samuel had gone to sleep before heading back. As he strolled along the shadowed paths winding through the academy grounds, Arsene couldn't help but wonder about the strange animosity Samuel had toward him. He's not even a descendant of wrath. So why does it feel like he's always ready to explode? He shook his head, annoyed. Makes no damn sense. But then a sudden thought hit him. Wait, Samuel's a descendant of gluttony. Maybe that constant rage wasn't about him personally, it could be some primal instinct. Just like Arsen's own inclination toward chaos. That led him to recall something Professor Roll had mentioned recently, the concept of a being's innate disposition. At the time, he hadn't paid it much mind. But now he wondered, what exactly is chaos? Was it just a mana attribute? Or something deeper, something more fundamental? He briefly considered consulting the information sheet, a kind of magical resource that let you query knowledge, but shook his head. If it had known anything useful about chaos, it would have told me back when I learned the seal skill. Waste of money. Frustrated by the lack of answers, Arsen made up his mind to find a quiet place where he could practice mana purification. He wandered into a small grove near the eastern courtyard, the sky glowing with hues of sunset. His eyes drifted up to a tall tree, and he noticed a small bird perched on one of the higher branches. A sparrow? He murmured. But after a closer look, he shook his head. Not quite. Still, it was surprising. Even here, inside the walls of Saiton Academy, creatures from beyond the city could fly in and out freely. Then, just as he was about to look away, the bird's eyes briefly flashed red. Arsen flinched slightly, instinctively noting the detail in silence. Night had fallen. Arsen quietly opened the door to room 407 and let out a relieved breath when he saw Samuel already asleep, tucked neatly under the blanket. Good, at least he's asleep. That means peace. Exhausted to his core, Arsen tossed his bag aside carelessly and collapsed onto the bed with a heavy sigh. Dead tired. Today really drained me. Despite his weariness, he tried to push himself, before sleeping. He should practice his mana a little. Lying back on his pillow, he slowly regulated his breathing, focused his mind, and felt the gentle flow of mana circulate through his body, but before long, his consciousness started slipping towards sleep. Suddenly, Arsen's eyes snapped wide open. A pitch-black figure was looming over him on the bed, looming directly in front of him. It was Samuel. His eyes glowed an eerie green, piercing straight into Arsen's mind like blades. Arsen's body stiffened, heart racing wildly as that cold, unblinking gaze stared down at him, threatening and merciless. Samuel's face was full of contempt as he thought bitterly. Even when he's asleep, that guy still looks stupid and annoying. Frustration surged inside him as old memories flooded back, the sarcastic remarks, the insults Arsen had thrown straight at him. He had even insulted Samuel's entire family line. Samuel clenched his fists tightly, vowing inwardly, even if I'm wrong, I will never be the one to apologize first. He exhaled deeply, full of weariness. So many things to worry about. So many things to do. And now he had to waste energy thinking about a trash like Arsen? But then, unexpectedly, a powerful image of Arsen from class yesterday flashed through his mind. Faint memories flickered, Arsen radiating an intense, almost terrifying aura. Samuel vaguely saw other figures standing nearby, making his heart ache sharply, as if it was being squeezed. This feeling, I've experienced it before, but why does it come now? Suddenly, a sharp pain stabbed through his side, causing Samuel to collapse, letting out a painful groan, clutching his stomach, his eyes wide with terror. Damn it, the gluttony binge is starting again? Cold sweat poured from his forehead as he gritted his teeth to endure the overwhelming hunger. His belly glowing faintly with a sinister green energy, like poison gnawing from within. My body feels drained, I can't take this anymore. At that moment, Arsen shifted slightly in his sleep, mumbling something indistinctly. Samuel glanced over, his eyes filled with irritation. He was starving every second, yet he still had to see that smug face until morning. He really wanted to punch that guy straight in the mouth. Exhausted, Samuel slumped down on the edge of the bed, groaning softly as the pain inside him continued to torment. Morning came. The clock tower bell outside rang out, signaling the start of classes. Arsen sat up, yawning quietly as he stretched his back and shoulders. What time is it? Is it morning already? Morning sunlight poured through the large window, and the ticking of the clock echoed steadily in the peaceful room. Arsen glanced toward the window, his eyes suddenly lighting up. Huh? Is that The bird from yesterday? A small bird perched on a branch just outside the window, exactly like the one he had seen the afternoon before. A faint but sharp smile appeared on Arsen's lips. In Saiton, a place so strict about foreign creatures, something like this still wanders around? He furrowed his brow. Suspicious. Someone is watching me. The conclusion flashed in his mind like a reflex. Still acting casual, Arsen stretched by the window, making the wooden frame creak softly. In his thoughts, he calculated, maybe it's Professor Aries, the one who's been the most suspicious of me. He immediately scanned his mana to check, it wasn't an illusion. It was a real living creature. Thinking for a moment, he decided to try taming it by offering food. He reached out toward the branch, waving gently and whispering, "Come on, come here." But then his eyes flicked to the clock. Breakfast time was almost over. Arsen muttered, "Samuel's probably already gone to eat. I should go too, or I'll starve." He stepped away from the window, still thinking about the strange bird, and whoever was behind it. A brief wave of confusion passed through Arsen's mind as he realized he didn't remember where the dining hall was. As a result, by the time he arrived at class, he was already a bit late. A female professor walked in cheerfully. "Good morning, everyone." As Arsen sat down, he silently sighed to himself. "I got lost looking for the dining hall and missed breakfast." Now, with his stomach empty, he wondered if he could focus on class feeling this hungry. The professor, a woman with long wavy gray hair, stepped onto the podium, holding a gradebook, and announced seriously, "Today, during homeroom, I have an important announcement. Is everyone present?" Arsen frowned, suspicious in his mind. What important announcement could this be? "Today, we will select the class president." The whole class buzzed with chatter. Arsen's eyes widened, thinking, "Class president, huh?" At that moment, a blue-haired student raised their hand. "Excuse me, professor, how will the class president be chosen?" The professor smiled mysteriously. "At first, I planned to have you all vote. But after reconsidering, I will just appoint someone." The room fell silent for a moment. Then, a female student with horns stood up, a radiant pink aura sparkling like a stage effect behind her. She confidently declared loudly, "An absolutely wise decision." Arsen was startled, instantly recognizing her. Fran. Just like in the novel. He smirked quietly in his mind, with a personality like that. There's no way I'd make a good class president anyway. Fran turned to the class, boldly declaring, "From now on, let me lead this class. Everyone, serve me as your king." Arsen silently nodded. Honestly, Fran was the most reasonable choice. Even if her intellect was a bit lacking, her charisma and buffing abilities were undeniably top-notch. Another student spoke up. "Wait, why not let Arsen be the class president? He seems pretty capable." Fran shot a contemptuous glance. "Please, a half-breed like him wants to be class president?" And so the discussion began to heat up. Someone asked, "What about Samuel?" Fran frowned and shrugged. "He looks way too scary." Sitting nearby, Arsen smiled faintly, feeling a little heartened. "So my performance the other day really left an impression. Huh? Being mentioned like that, it's kinda nice." Fran puffed up her chest, proudly proclaiming, "No matter what, I'm still the obvious choice. Come on, teacher, don't be shy, just announce it already." The professor sighed and said firmly, "The class president will not be Fran." Fran gasped, her blue eyes wide in shock, while a violet, crackling aura flickered around her as if about to explode. The professor smiled gently, then turned to look at a red-haired young man sitting by the window. "The class president of our class is Pixie Arsen." Arsen was stunned speechless. "Huh?" He looked around, question marks swirling in his head, completely confused. "What? Why me? A half-demon like me chosen as class president?" Before his thoughts could finish, the teacher's voice, her eyes now glowing faintly blue, continued. An excited student shouted, "Class President Arsen, do your best leading the class." "Arsen, I haven't even eaten breakfast yet." Still a bit dazed, he awkwardly replied, "Why yes." The instructor nodded and announced that she had to head to another class but would leave some final instructions before going. She said, "To prepare for the midterm exam at the end of the semester. The lessons from now on will focus on practical combat training." The whole class murmured, some students starting to buzz with excitement and anxiety. The training will be done in groups of 3. Please form your groups before the end of today. A pink-haired girl sitting near Arson lightly rested her hand on her chin, thoughtfully considering the group arrangement. Arson closed his eyes, quietly pondering the upcoming midterm and the practical combat training. He reasoned, if this is combat training at Saiton, then it probably means killing. In this world, fighting means ending the enemy. The instructor ended the homeroom session with a final warning. Student Fran. Fran looked up, curious. Yes? The teacher's voice remained gentle, but her gaze was sharp and commanding. If you dare speak disrespectfully to me again, you'll be privileged with extra individual lessons. Understand? Fran flinched and froze. Her arrogant smile immediately deflated like a popped balloon. Just one sentence, and the teacher reminded her to stay grounded. Arson quietly observed the entire scene, smiling faintly. In his mind, he thought, this teacher really knows how to bring people back down to earth. Before leaving the class, the teacher turned back to remind, "Oh, class president, remember to submit the group list by the last period today." Then she smiled warmly. Wish everyone a productive day of studying. Now officially class president. Arson watched the teacher's figure disappear from the classroom. Still lost in thought about the upcoming combat training, he stroked his chin, silently wondering, I wonder if we'll use puppets for training like last time? But then he shook his head, dismissing the thought. Based on the storyline he knew, the academy hadn't yet started attacking the human world. So, the current training was just preparation. Anyway, the top priority is to form a solid team first. Arson's eyes scanned the class and paused at the pink-haired girl sitting nearby. He gave a slight smirk. Looks like he'd almost picked his teammate. Outside the classroom hallway, right after the homeroom teacher left, she immediately came into the view of 2 waiting shadowy figures. One was a tall man with spiky purple hair, a prominent black cross tattoo on his neck, and a cold, deadly expression, stepping forward heavily. Cut to another room. The instructor Idea was sitting and writing documents when the door suddenly slammed open. Instructor Idea. She looked up calmly, her eyes steady. You're here already? The man who entered was still furious, his voice harsh. What the hell do you think you're doing? Idea smiled gently, as if she hadn't heard his anger. It's been a long time since I saw that serious face of yours. It's worth it, isn't it? Her words were light as the breeze, but only made his rage rise even higher. The man snapped impatiently. I didn't come here to hear your meaningless words. He slammed his hand on the table, the sharp bang echoing sharply. Why did you appoint that brat as class president? Idea? Idea's voice remained soft and calm. That just happened this morning. And you already know, you really have a network of informants all over Saiton. Don't you, senior? The man clenched his teeth, his eyes sharp as knives. He growled, you can't possibly not understand what it means to put Arson in that position. Idea nodded without hesitation. Of course I understand. Her tone was even, but her eyes shone with determination. Senior didn't let her say more. He almost shouted, even if it's temporary, putting him in charge of Class A is basically handing him control. He slammed the table again, shaking with anger. And yet you still did it. Are you crazy? His breath grew heavier, chest heaving with suppressed fury. Finally, Senior ground out each word. It's not too late. Change him now. If not, he trailed off, but the threat was clear. Idea didn't flinch from his dagger-like gaze, staring back calmly and resolutely. She didn't have to shout or act tough, her steadiness spoke for itself. Unshaken by the threat, Instructor Idea calmly responded, I am fully aware of the consequences of appointing Arson as class president. The tall man with spiked purple hair, Senior, glared, incredulous. You knew and still went through with it? Idea leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, answering decisively. No. Senior grabbed his head, raking his fingers through his hair in despair. Damn it. This is enough to drive anyone crazy. Idea continued calmly. I like that student, Senior. She explained her reasoning. Arson possesses outstanding abilities, yet is not arrogant like the offspring of the 7 deadly sins. Moreover, his status is guaranteed by the Bear clan, clear identity, solid backing. But Senior remained unconvinced. He pressed. Having a clear status doesn't mean he's trustworthy. You should understand better than anyone. The most dangerous sword is a blind one. Idea sighed softly, crossing her arms again. I will take care of my class myself. You don't need to interfere. Though she was a new instructor, she had great confidence in her judgment. Senior, still furious, slammed his hand on the table once more. Instructor idea. But she gave no reply. Quietly, she left the room, leaving Senior alone, seething with rage. As she disappeared from sight, he cursed under his breath. Damn it, he growled inwardly, filled with regret. I should have taken that class for myself. Leaving someone so dangerous to Idea was a mistake. A fleeting memory surfaced. He clearly recalled a half-blooded warrior who had left an unforgettable wound in a brutal battle. And somehow, the aura Arson gave off yesterday was far too similar to that person. The chance that Arson is a descendant of that figure might be low. But it was too similar. Too coincidental to ignore. I still haven't figured out what he really wants. Just then, a small bird landed on his shoulder. Chirping once, Senior turned his head slightly, eyes cold and sharp as he looked at the bird. Nothing too strange so far. But don't take your eyes off him for a single second. Understood? In another place, apparently the library, a group of students were chatting cheerfully. One boy with pale purple hair and pointed ears smiled softly. Next to him was someone with a prominent tattoo on his neck. And another student with spiky blonde hair and small horns sat nearby. His face radiating friendliness. The atmosphere was warm and casual, full of the easy camaraderie of school friendships. None of them had any idea that one of their classmates, Arson, was currently being closely watched. Every move scrutinized. Back in the classroom, as the break time began, everyone started bustling to form groups. Arson sat quietly, observing the lively scene around him. He let out a small, half-joking, half-sad smile. I'm the class president, and yet no one has asked me to join a group. Maybe it's because I look too suspicious? Just then, a hesitant student approached and asked, Hey, do you want to form a group with me? Samuel, sitting nearby with another student, glanced over and said coldly, Just don't drag me down. Okay? The hesitant student turned to thank Samuel, then introduced his friend to Arson. Arson looked at both of them and sighed inwardly. Even he's already got someone to team up with. And here I am, just sitting like a leftover. Resigned, Arson sighed again. He finally accepted the truth. If he just waited to be asked, he'd never get a group. Steeling himself, cracking his knuckles, he stood up with determination. His gaze landed on the pink-haired girl he had noticed earlier. Walking up to her, he simply said, Hi. She flinched slightly, letting out a small surprised sound. Arson calmly explained, I just scanned your mana. Sorry if I startled you. But I noticed your mana level is pretty good. And you have healing skills. Perfect for a team. He smiled and reintroduced himself. I'm Arson. We've met before, remember? Then he asked, Have you found a group yet? She responded shyly. No, not yet. Arson quickly said, Great. So, tell me your name? After a brief hesitation, she replied softly, Luna. Arson smiled faintly. That's a really cute name. Then he tilted his head and made a direct offer. So, join my team, okay? Working with the class president could be good for you too. Luna widened her eyes, a little flustered. This is a bit sudden. Arson seized the initiative, leaning forward and lowering his voice to a whisper. The last period is coming soon. There isn't much time left to submit the group list. Then he added gently and tactfully. Besides, we're both half-demons, so we'll definitely work well together. Luna let out a small sound of surprise. Arson sealed the deal. Just say, yes, and we're set. From now on, we're teammates. She didn't answer, thinking her silence meant agreement. Arson nodded. Wise decision. At that moment, Fran, the girl with horns, spoke from the next desk with a mocking tone. What's so wise about that decision? Arson turned his head, silently groaning. Here we go again. Fran laughed loudly, eyes gleaming mischievously. So you still don't have a team? That's pathetic, Tilda. Then she tossed her hair arrogantly and declared proudly. Fine, I'll be generous and let you join. From now on, serve under me. Arson replied calmly. Luna and I just formed a team. Could you please go back to your seat? Luna, cheeks burning from being dragged into the mess. Stammered. That's unreasonable. I heard everything from the start. We're standing right here, aren't we? Unfazed, Fran boldly stated. No matter what, I refuse to recognize Arson as class president. The one who should truly lead this class is me. Arson thought to himself. Might as well just refuse her outright and be done with it. But Fran stuck like a leech, showing no sign of backing down. In the end, Arson had to give in a little. Fine, she can join. The condition was that Fran would be the team leader, but in Arson's mind, he had already calculated carefully. Every decision she made had to be approved by him first. After all, as a descendant of one of the 7 deadly sins, it was better to keep her close and under his watchful eye. Unaware of Arson's hidden calculations, Fran smiled brightly. Don't worry, trust your leader, and follow me. Confident, arrogant, and, just as Arson had predicted, he gave a slight nod, quietly thinking to himself, I'm still leading her, just a little. 1 week later, Arson sat at his desk, eyes fixed on the glowing blue status board. His mana level had increased from 1321 to 1332. Well, at least it's gone up a bit, he muttered silently. But it still wasn't enough. He murmured to himself, I need to find a way to get some mana potions soon. Mana is one thing, but I still don't understand this chaos attribute. Hopefully, there'll be some clues in this week's magic class. A weary aura seemed to emanate from Arson's body. His thoughts shifted to another matter. Crete Solitude, a small dragon-shaped relic, currently resting quietly in its box, had recently started acting unstable. It seemed like he would have to carry it with him at all times. Arson sighed inwardly. Everything was becoming more complicated. His mana was still unstable. The chaos attribute remained uncontrollable. And now this mysterious relic on top of it all. But at least there was one thing that eased his mind. Samuel was unusually quiet. When Arson glanced over, his roommate merely gave a lazy neither happy nor sad. Despite the mounting worries, Arson tried to hold onto a fragile thread of optimism. Well, things will get better eventually, he reassured himself. The next morning, the academy's clock tower bell rang, signaling the start of the first class. Instructor Idea entered the room with a bright smile. Good morning, everyone. Arson glanced at her and noticed she looked unusually cheerful today. Something good must have happened, he thought. Idea clapped her hands and announced, today's lesson will be a little special. We'll be going outside for combat training. Arson raised an eyebrow. Finally, combat training, but outside. The instructor explained further. We will be leaving Saitan and traveling to a place called Orgon. Arson's eyes immediately widened. Orgon? He remembered that name very clearly. In the story's timeline, Orgon was the prison where humans who had fought in the war between humans and demons were locked away, never to return. We're about to be sent to a prison camp? Idea continued with a cheerful expression. We'll be traveling by interdimensional spaceship. Follow me. The students around started buzzing with excitement. Going outside? Sounds awesome already. Not even a vacation, but still getting to go somewhere. Arson glanced around, sighed, and his eyes darkened. Everyone's excited, just because they think going outside to train will be fun. But if they knew what Orgon really was, they'd be frozen in fear. For Arson, what mattered most about this training was what awaited at Orgon. A special opportunity that the main character in the original novel was supposed to discover there, but now, if Arson got there first, maybe he'd be the one to find it first. But with that came a worry. Can I find it without tipping off all the others watching? He knew well enough. The guards at Orgon were no joke. Lost in his thoughts, Fran suddenly appeared, grinning as she teased. What's up? Why does your face look like a statue? She giggled, pretending to tilt her head casually. First time training outside, huh? Must be pretty nerve-wracking? Arson nodded in confirmation, and Fran looked genuinely surprised. Huh? You get nervous too? She glanced at his serious face and thought to herself. So gloomy, but turns out you get scared too. Then she puffed out her chest proudly and smiled. Don't forget, your Ultra Super Team leader is right here. Just follow me, and everything will be fine. Arson sighed quietly to himself. She really doesn't know what tired means. But then he smirked, thinking, let's see if she can still be this confident when we get to Orgon. Still, he had to admit one thing. Thanks to her noisy presence, I do feel a little less weighed down. The interdimensional spaceship sped through the dark layers of space, its magic-powered wheels sparking as it pierced the gloomy void. Sitting inside the cabin, Arson stared intently through the fogged window, where the blurred purple-hued landscape drifted past in cold, frozen frames. Ahead of him stood Orgon, a massive fortress, cold and imposing, looming like a scar across the world. Clenching his fists tightly, his gaze sharp and focused, Arson thought, this is the one and only chance in a lifetime. No matter what happens, I have to seize it. The train hissed to a stop, brakes screeching as the doors slid open with a chime. Dear passengers, we've arrived at Orgon. Please disembark carefully, the automated voice echoed through the cabin. One by one, the students filed off, their expressions ranging from excited to visibly tense. Leading them was Instructor Adia, her voice chipper and bright. All right everyone, this is it. Stay close and follow me. Arson's gaze drifted ahead to the massive prison complex looming in the distance. So this is Orgon, the infamous human containment facility. Even just standing here, he could feel the suffocating weight of the place pressing down on them. Yeah, definitely a tense atmosphere. Two students walking ahead of him were already fidgeting nervously. This doesn't feel right, one muttered. Are we seriously training here? Idea turned back with her ever-present smile. That's right. This is your training ground. But don't worry, there won't be any fighting at Orgon. Yeah, right. Arson chuckled internally. She already knows what's coming, and she still says that with a straight face. Sadistic much. Just then, a group of prison wardens approached from the gates. You from Satan? One of them asked gruffly. Idea stepped forward and handed over a document. Yes, here's our permit. While she spoke, Arson subtly scanned the wardens, eyes narrowing. That one, his presence alone is enough to crush someone. He's probably on par with the lecturer. Definitely not someone to mess with. After glancing through the papers, the lead warden gave a short nod. Confirmed. Follow me. Idea turned back and gestured. All right everyone, this way. The group moved in single file through the iron gates, the mood growing heavier with every step. And then let me out. Please, I don't want to die. Someone help me. No, please don't take me. The cries of despair came from all directions, echoing through the stone walls. A few of the students broke into a sweat, their eyes darting around. Even the haughty Fran let out a startled yelp. What is this place? The air thickened with a strange, metallic scent, sharp and unnatural. One of the boys gagged slightly, pulling his sleeve up to cover his nose. Is it just me, or does it smell like something's about to jump out and kill us? And right on cue, move it. Samuel barked, shoving the student in front of him. You're blocking the way, get going. From Arson's point of view, the way the other students were reacting almost made him chuckle. Finally, some real reactions. Took them long enough. Looks like Samuel isn't fazed at all though. That guy's seriously something else. Not long after that, their instructor Idea came to a stop. She turned around and addressed the group, her voice chipper as ever. All right everyone, we finally arrived at your training grounds. What lay before them was a wide-open yard, surrounded on all sides by rows of cold, bleak prison cells. This was the true nature of Orgon, a living hell. Following Idea's words, the students' eyes slowly drifted toward the cells. Inside they saw gaunt, decaying figures, clearly human, imprisoned and barely clinging to life. Idea continued, smiling as if she were giving a campus tour. You see them, don't you? These are the people who dared to raise their hands against the demon realm. Each one of them has taken the life of at least one demon. These criminals have blood-stained hands. Among their victims were pregnant women, and even children. She paused for dramatic effect, then leaned in just slightly. I bet you're all dying to know what your training will be, right? Well, feast your eyes on this. At that exact moment, one of the prisoners, a bald, scrawny man, was dragged out into the open, clearly terrified. Idea stepped toward him with a wicked grace, and dark, ominous mana began to pour from her body. It was so intense, it made the poor prisoner tremble like a lamb awaiting slaughter. Before he could fully process what was happening, Idea reached out and gripped his jaw tightly. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Just swallow it. It'll be over quickly. A small orb of condensed mana formed at her fingertip. Without a second thought, She shoved it straight into the man's mouth. Watching from the side, Luna turned ghost pale, utterly horrified. In contrast, Samuel's eyes lit up with excitement, as if he were watching fireworks. Then it happened. Right before their eyes, the prisoner's head began to swell like a soap bubble, slowly inflating. A second later, it exploded with a sickening pop, splattering blood and bits of flesh everywhere. A few droplets even came dangerously close to hitting Arsene, making him instinctively flinch back. Unbothered by the bloodshed she had just caused, Professor Idea turned back to the students with a radiant smile. "All you have to do," she said sweetly, as if she were explaining how to pluck a chicken, "is kill a human, in your own way. Simple enough, right?" Her tone was casual, almost too casual, but the students were anything but calm. Some began coughing uncontrollably. Others gagged, fighting the urge to throw up. The horror on their faces was unmistakable. Arsene wasn't surprised. Not one bit. Even after witnessing a death like that, "Strange, I feel nothing," he thought to himself. "Maybe it's because I've completely assimilated into Arsene. No matter how twisted this world gets, my goal remains unchanged. I'll survive until the end. I'll rewrite the ending of this world and fulfill Arsene's wish." That was the vow he made to himself. Then, without warning, Idea turned to him with a gleam in her eye. "You're the class representative, aren't you? Why don't you go first? Got anything you'd like to say before we begin?" Arsene didn't waste words. Calmly, he walked toward one of the prison cells, reached for the handle, and opened it. With practiced ease, he drew a dagger from his coat. Inside the cell, the chosen prisoner stood frozen in disbelief, seemingly caught off guard by his selection. He didn't even know what to say. Still, Arsene gave him the courtesy of a question. "Any last words?" The man bared his teeth like a rabid dog. "I only regret not killing more of you demon scum. We humans will wipe your kind out, every last one of you." Before he could spew any more hate, Arsene acted. With a swift, precise motion, he ended the man's life. Blood splattered across the wall, and the prisoner's voice was silenced in an instant. And then, unexpectedly, Arsene smiled. A cold, unsettling smile that made anyone watching feel a chill run down their spine. Hearing him talk like that made killing him even more satisfying. He wiped the blade clean, slid it back into his coat, and stepped out of the cell, composed once more. "Will that suffice?" he asked evenly. Professor Idea clapped her hands, genuinely delighted. "Excellent work. That's the spirit. Everyone, just follow your class rep, enter a cell, and begin your training." Then she turned to another group nearby. "As for our half-demon students, please step aside for a moment. Just over here if you would." Following the instructor's command, several students stepped aside while Arsene stood still, silently processing the request. "So only the half-demons are being separated. That means, besides Luna and me, there are others in the class as well. But Luna, she doesn't look good at all." His eyes shifted toward the pink-haired girl, whose face was drenched in sweat. Her hands trembled, and her eyes darted around in panic. Back with Idea, the professor had already dragged out a line of prisoners, forcing them to kneel in front of the students. She spoke again, her voice firm. "These are the prisoners you'll be dealing with. Prove that you are not like these filthy traitors." Across from her, a red-headed student shaking with anxiety suddenly clenched his jaw and let out a furious shout. "Die! Do you know how much we've suffered because of you bastards? You deserve to die. Just die already." His rage erupted into a flurry of punches and kicks, the raw emotion boiling over. And with that, the training officially began. Those who had the misfortune of being chosen by Arsene were lucky. In comparison, his kills were quick and precise. The others, not so fortunate. Some were beaten senseless before they were even granted death. Samuel, ever the show-off, took things further. Desperate to flaunt his power, he began to summon his magical pressure. "Bite!" he shouted. Dark energy surged from his body, taking shape, twisting into a monstrous demonic face, all fangs and fury. The prisoner in front of him nearly pissed himself on the spot, paralyzed with terror. It wasn't just Samuel. The timid Luna watched the scene unfold, and every second made her want to run away even more. She could do nothing but squeeze her eyes shut and endure the nightmare. Arsene observed all of this quietly. Watching Samuel's wild grin and expression disturbingly close to ecstasy made him uneasy. He didn't need to go that far. Why is Samuel enjoying this so much? Is he actually excited about tearing humans apart? His gaze drifted again toward Luna. She looked like she was on the verge of collapse. She's done. Completely broken. If Idea's attention to her now, it's not going to end well. And sure enough, following Arsen's worried glance, Professor Idea was now staring straight at Luna, a clear glint of disappointment in her eyes. On the other side, Fran quietly walked up to the female instructor and asked, "Instructor, as long as I use my abilities, I'll pass, right?" Hearing the question, Idea smiled warmly and nodded. "Basically, yes. That's correct." "I understand," Fran replied calmly. Without hesitation, she activated her magic, directing it toward one of the prisoners standing in front of her. "From this moment on, you are bound to me. Now, eliminate the human beside you." Immediately, the prisoner's body was engulfed in a soft pink glow. His will was completely overwritten. He turned toward his fellow inmate and wrapped his hands tightly around the man's throat. Don't do this," the other man gasped, struggling for breath. But it was no use. Fran stood silently, coldly watching her puppet carry out her command. Only once the task was done did she turn back and ask flatly, "So, is that sufficient?" Idea responded with a satisfied nod. "Yes, you pass. We can work on that soft heart of yours later." Fran didn't say a word in return. Her silver hair swayed slightly as she turned away, her expression unreadable. Meanwhile, Arsen watched quietly from the back, thinking to himself, seems like Fran doesn't lack hatred toward humans, but she's softer than she lets on. Back with Idea. The training was nearly over. Most of the students had completed their tasks. Only one remained. She turned her gaze to Luna, who was still trembling in fear, and said, "Now there's only one left. Come on, Luna, show me who you are." Luna's face turned pale, drained of all color, like someone about to pass out. Inside her mind, panic screamed louder than reason. "No, I can't do this. Please, let me leave. Just let me out of here." At that moment, Luna herself was fully aware of just how pathetic she looked. Pathetic because of a man who didn't even deserve to be called a father. She had come here to avenge her mother, a woman whose life had been shrouded in darkness. And yet, she couldn't do anything at all. The sheer helplessness and self-directed rage welled up inside her, her fingers involuntarily digging into the ground, leaving behind claw marks in the dirt. Then, Arsen quietly approached and asked, "You okay?" Hearing his voice, Luna turned slightly to glance at him, as if wondering what he was planning. Arsen, for his part, had a simple goal. He just wanted to help the trembling bunny-like girl a little. "Hang on, I'll help you train." "Alright, let's begin." As he spoke, Arsen pulled out his familiar dagger and gently placed it into her small, shaky hands. "You're probably scared. But you have to do this. Just relax your grip a little. Keep moving forward like this, and you'll be fine." He placed his hands over hers, guiding her, leading her movements. But Luna was still too frightened to even open her eyes. All she could do was blindly follow his direction, and thrust the dagger forward. And with that, as if their short training session had reached its end, Arsen gave her a gentle pat on the head and praised, "Good job." Despite his calm voice, sweat trickled down Arsen's face, proof of how tense he had actually been. That could have gone really bad, he thought. For a half-demon who can't bring herself to harm a human, the outcome would have been severe. At best, she'd be expelled. At worst, well, let's not think about that. Across the room, it wasn't like Instructor Idea had missed Luna's inner struggle. Of course not. Even with Arsen's help, Idea's disappointment in the girl hadn't lessened at all. She turned her attention to Arsen, clearly unimpressed. "I really don't understand what you were thinking, Class President. You don't actually expect her to make it through all this, do you?" Arsen smiled and pushed back. "No, but Student Luna has passed." Idea blinked, visibly surprised. "What did you just say?" Arsen explained calmly, "You said yourself, if we deal with a human using our own ability, we pass. Luna is the only healer in all of Satan. I helped her because I recognized the value of that talent." Idea stared at him, slack-jawed for a moment. "Well, I'll be damned. So that's how you're playing this, huh? Then tell me this, would you still help a student with no talent at all?" Without hesitation, Arsen replied, "Of course not. If they have no talent, I'd abandon them." Oddly enough, after hearing that, Idea's lips curled slightly into a pleased smile. She gave a small shrug, seemingly satisfied for now. "Fine, do as you like. I'll remember what you said. I'm going to check on the others." You too, stay here. As her footsteps faded into the distance, Arson finally let out a quiet breath of relief. Whew, dodged a bullet there. At least my answer worked. If this were that bootlicker Ares instead of me, Luna wouldn't have stood a chance. Turning back to the pink-haired girl, Arson offered a small nod. Looks like you're officially in the clear. Luna looked up at him, eyes wide with gratitude. Really? I see. Thank God. And then before she could even finish the sentence, her body swayed to the side and she collapsed. Luckily, Arson reacted in time to catch her before she hit the ground. All right, sleep well, he whispered. Now, it's time for the real game to begin. I know everything about Organ, and I've still got time. A sly grin crept across Arson's face, an expression that hinted at some sinister plan brewing just beneath the surface. Time passed quickly as our protagonist continued navigating the labyrinthine hallways. But the patrols were everywhere, forcing him to slow his pace and rethink his strategy. Arson glanced at a guard station just ahead and swallowed hard. As expected, security's insanely tight. All right, time to melt into the shadows. With that, Arson cloaked himself in dark energy, instantly reducing his presence. Yes, nailed it. I've definitely gotten better at this. Perfect. As long as I stay veiled in the darkness, I can sneak in safely. I just need to reach the gate leading to the underground tunnel. Without hesitation, Arson rose from his spot and slipped into motion. But just as he stepped forward, the guard ahead suddenly turned around as if sensing something. Arson's heart skipped a beat, and his entire body froze. Did he see me? He wondered in panic. Fortunately, after a brief glance around, the guard turned back and walked off, allowing Arson to breathe a deep, quiet sigh of relief. Damn, these Organ wardens can sense the slightest shift in the air. I need to move fast. Using the layout head memorized, Arson quickly made his way to one of the prison cells. There it is. The only cell on the first floor with a hidden corridor inside. He activated his position swapping ability and teleported directly into the cell. But the moment he landed, the ground beneath him gave way. His body dropped straight down as if he'd stepped on a trap. Glancing up at the ceiling mid-fall, he noticed something. A pressure-triggered mechanism. I figured as much. Now, how do I control this descent? Recalling how far the original Arson had fallen in this same trap, he decided to make use of that knowledge. 1, 2. He silently counted seconds while drawing his dagger. Then, with perfect timing, he hurled the blade downward. The moment he heard it strike the floor, he activated his spatial switch ability and instantly swapped places with it, landing smoothly and unharmed. Before him now lay a massive underground aqueduct. But from the shadows, thick clouds of black-purple ooze began to slither out, lethal dark slimes, their toxins strong enough to kill on contact. Tech, just what I needed. Alright then, go for the core. With that thought, Arson summoned his skill Dark Energy Shadow Blade, VP. Instantly, several shadowy daggers materialized in the air and shot forward like missiles. Each blade hit its mark with surgical precision, striking the glowing cores inside the slimes and reducing them to nothing. Knowing their weak point made that a breeze. Now, all that's left is to dive. With that mental note, Arson took one last breath, then plunged straight into the underground water channel. As Arson dove deeper into the dark water, a strange voice suddenly echoed around him, soft, yet clear, as if whispering from beyond time itself, go no further. The great demon is dead. The words made Arson pause for a second, curiosity flickering in his eyes. The great demon? I don't remember writing anything about that. Is this where the demon who led the rebellion centuries ago fell? The one so powerful that even the Demon King couldn't kill him, only seal him away. Alright then, guess I'll find out when I get there. And just like that, a faint glow began to appear ahead, signaling the path to the surface. After swimming a bit farther, Arson finally emerged from the water and pulled himself onto solid ground. But the sight that greeted him was unexpected. In front of him stood a skeleton, ancient, unmoving and bound in place. Two massive iron stakes were driven through its legs, anchoring it firmly to the floor, as if whoever this was had to be stopped from ever rising again. What truly caught Arson's attention, however, was the heart. Sitting in the center of the ribcage was a gray, lifeless heart, withered and unmoving, as though it had been drained of every last drop of life long ago. A heart, still inside the bones? Maybe it holds the last chance. If I can get it, it's mine. Arson grinned to himself, reaching his hand forward. But just as his fingers were about to touch it, thump. The heart pulsed once. A surge of crimson light suddenly flared from within it, like a dormant power being reignited. Arson's eyes widened in disbelief. Wait, what? The heart, it's still active. That's insane. He shouted, frozen in shock, unable to tear his gaze away from the eerie glow now radiating from the skeleton's chest. In just a few seconds, the skeleton in front of Arson seemed to come back to life. Its entire body was suddenly pulled into the air, levitating ominously. Behind it, a radiant golden sigil appeared blazing like sunlight. Arson could only stare, dumbfounded. I can't believe this is actually happening, and that symbol, it looks exactly like the tattoo of my clan on the back of my neck. Wait a second, was the traitor of the demon realm somehow tied to the Adel family? Opposite him, the skeletal figure, as if short on time, began to speak urgently, its voice echoing directly into Arson's mind. Child of Adel, listen carefully to what I say. If you can hear my thoughts, it means we now share the same burden. The Cosborn born from me, do not let yourself be consumed by that chaos. Chaos is what warps the natural order of the world. If you lose yourself chasing after its meaning, you'll end up just like me. And with that final warning, the skeleton slowly began to disintegrate, scattering into the air as gray dust. Its message delivered, its existence faded away. All that remained was the ashen heart, silent once more. Arson reached out and grabbed it, holding it in his hand as he examined it closely. I can feel it. There's a will inside this thing, desperate, yearning for destruction. It must be the last lingering desire passed down from Arson's ancestors. And then, the heart shattered, crumbling into pieces right in his palm. Curious to see if he'd gained anything from it, Arson quickly opened his status window. His eyes lit up when he saw the words appear: spiritual transfer, a new ability. He couldn't help but shout, a spiritual manipulation skill. Finally. I've been waiting forever for something like this. Let's give it a try. Without hesitation, he pulled out his trusty dagger and tried to move it using only his will. Clang. The dagger dropped to the floor with a sharp metallic clatter, refusing to budge an inch. Arson blinked, then knelt to pick it up again. It's not that I'm lacking the ability, it's probably just that I haven't mastered the skill yet. I'll need a lot more practice. But still, I've made serious progress. I got a lead on the Cosborn, and unlocked a new ability. That's a huge win. Looks like there's nothing else useful here. I'd better get back before someone notices I'm gone. Without wasting another second, Arson took off back toward the gathering point. Unfortunately for him, Fran had already noticed. As soon as she spotted him returning, the proud white-haired girl stormed up and snapped. Where the hell have you been sneaking off to? Huh? Caught off guard, Arson offered a sheepish grin. I was just taking a little walk. You know, stretching my legs. Fran didn't buy it for a second. Seriously, you expect me to believe that? A walk? Alone? In this place? Still unfazed, Arson simply waved her off. What can I say? The view of humans locked behind bars, pretty impressive. His nonchalant attitude only made Fran angrier. Hey, I'm talking to you. Where the hell did you really go? But Arson had already started looking around, clearly done with the interrogation. Wonder where Idea went off to, he muttered. As if on cue, Luna appeared nearby, her voice calm as she greeted them. Arson turned to her with a smile. Ah, Luna. Sleep well? The 14-year-old girl gave a quiet nod. Yeah, I slept great. Seeing how composed she looked, Arson breathed a small sigh of relief. Good. You slept so well I was worried someone could have carried you off without you noticing. Back to Luna, she hadn't forgotten the help Arson had given her earlier. With a soft voice, she mumbled. Thank you for helping me. If it weren't for you, I probably. But before she could finish, Arson flashed his usual gentlemanly smile and cut her off. Don't worry about it. No need to thank me. It sounded casual, even charming, but behind that friendly mask, Arson's thoughts told a different story. Now that Luna owes me, I just need to find the right time to cash in on that favor. A little leverage always comes in handy. Moments later, their wandering instructor finally returned. Idea, as spirited as ever, clapped her hands and called out, "All right, everyone, gather up. Lucky for you, no one chickened out this time." I'm finally starting to see some fire in those eyes. Still, don't get complacent. We've got more work ahead. Now, let's head back. The students let out a collective breath of relief, some even smiling. Arson was more than happy to leave the grim prison behind. Finally, we're getting out of this hellhole where time felt like it stood still. Time passed quickly. Back in the classroom a week later, things had more or less settled down. The students, once shaken after being forced to take lives, now carried themselves with a bit more calm. Some even managed a joke or two. As for Arson, I've been secretly training my new skill, spiritual transfer. And it's just in time. The instructors keep going on and on about the midterm. He glanced around the room. In the novel, first-year students from Satan actually invaded the Royal Academy during the midterm. That means something big is coming, likely involving an attack on the human realm. His eyes narrowed slightly. How many of them will survive? That's the real question. And honestly, it's worth thinking about. Just then, something caught his eye. Luna, she was stealing glances at him from across the room. But the second their eyes met, she flinched and quickly looked away. That reaction didn't go unnoticed. Arson raised an eyebrow. A flicker of curiosity creeping across his face. What's that about? What's going on with her? And why does she look like that? Unable to hold back his curiosity, Arson walked up to her and lightly tapped her shoulder. The sudden touch made her flinch. Arson, you scared me. Luna yelped, whipping around. Arson gave her a calm, almost mischievous look. Well, you weren't answering, so I figured I'd sneak up on you a bit. You seem off. Something happened. His words struck a nerve right in the center of it. She immediately panicked, waving her hands in denial. And no, nothing's wrong at all. But that reaction only made Arson more suspicious. Really? He asked, voice steeped in disbelief. Luna nodded so hard it was almost cartoonish. Really? I swear. A few seconds passed, then Arson sighed inwardly. She's definitely hiding something. But instead of pressing her, he offered her an out. Want to get lunch together? Luna blinked, caught off guard. Lunch. Arson nodded. Unless you've got other plans. Her pink-haired expression quickly bloomed into a soft, relieved smile. No, let's have lunch together, she replied eagerly. That finally earned a satisfied nod from Arson. I'll be waiting by the cafeteria entrance during lunch. Her response and especially the warmth in her eyes put Arson at ease. She looked more relaxed now. A little fragile, sure, but approachable. She doesn't fear me anymore. Looks like I gained a few points with her back at Oregon. Time passed. By lunchtime, Arson was already waiting outside the cafeteria, but still no sign of Luna. He checked the time again, frowning. Lunch break's almost over. Where the heck did she go? He sighed. I don't usually eat alone, but I guess I've got no choice. Might as well head back to the dorm and get some training in. Disappointed, he turned to leave but only managed a few steps before freezing in place. Two familiar figures were approaching from the other end of the path, Renise and Diana. Oh no. His brain practically short-circuited. Not now. Without hesitation, Arson activated his position swap skill and vanished in a flicker of energy just before either of them spotted him. Well, almost. Renise stopped mid-step, her instincts kicking in. She narrowed her eyes, scanning the area. Diana, a few steps ahead, noticed and turned back. What is it, Renise? She asked. Back at Rene's side, she gave the area one last glance. Not seeing anything suspicious, she turned to Diana. I thought I just saw my escort, must been my imagination. Meanwhile, just a few bushes away, Arson was crouched low, heart pounding in his chest. Why are they here? His thoughts raced. This combo, it's the worst-case scenario. I overheard enough back in Oregon. If they ever find out I'm a descendant of House Adel, I'm dead meat. His mind replayed the memories. I'm not just any side character in this story. I play a central role in the fall of the demon realm. More than that, I killed the demon king. Both him and his wife. If that truth gets out, it's over for me. Arson bit his lip and slowly began crawling backward out of the area. Only once he was far enough away did he allow himself a sigh of relief. Whew, close one. That was way too risky. He looked around at the quiet grove behind the cafeteria and smirked. Still, this spot isn't bad. Way better than that cramped dorm room. Might make this my new training zone. Just as he was about to get started, a scream shattered the calm. High-pitched, desperate, and painfully familiar. Arson's head snapped up. That voice, Luna. No hesitation. He bolted toward the sound. As he reached a small clearing, the sight before him made his blood run cold. Luna stood there, face streaked with tears, voice trembling. Please stop. Just stop already.